Hello. No camera for you. We're gonna watch awesome Canadian politics. It's trash, but it must be done. Look how pathetic this shit is. Talk about foreign interference. The liberals are like, oh, don't worry, we're all up in that foreign interference. We got all that in check. So that's why we're gonna distance ourselves from the United States, our greatest ally, after acknowledging that they are our greatest ally. We're in unprecedented times. We need draconian laws from China. We need the Communist Republic to come to Canada to teach us how to fucking be civilized. We need Uyghur camps. We need a credit system, and we need camps for people who aren't
of Common
fucking
Standing Committee on
subservient to
Procedure
the government.
and House Affairs. Pursuant to Standing Order 10873, the committee is meeting on its study of foreign election interference. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format. Pursuant to the standing orders, members are attending in person in the room.
We're just going to skip the land acknowledgements because it's fucking stupid and I'm native, so
from the Department of Public...
I can say that.
Just acknowledge that we're gathered here on the traditional unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people. It's becoming abundantly clear that the
Give me fucking money then. Give me money, give me fucking land. Give me a nicer house.
And assessment of foreign interference.
Our agencies work to detect covert foreign interference activities as well as monitor foreign state actors who would seek to undermine public confidence in Canadian democracy. Additionally, for the first time during a federal election, the Security and Intelligence Threats to Elections Task Force provided weekly technical briefings to the media that helped sensitize and educate Canadians about the threats that could impact the election. In short, our election infrastructure and systems were constantly protected. Je le répète, nos mesures de protection ont fonctionné.
And I'll reiterate, our safeguards functioned as designed, and the integrity of the federal election was not compromised.
Foreign interference threat, the non-partisan process called the Critical Election Incident Public Protocol, established in 2019, is in place to inform Canadians. Even in non-election periods, our government and our national security partners remain steady. Our environment is constantly evolving. Threats have become more sophisticated, more covert, and more persistent. We continue to examine our approach and to seek improvements, striving for more efficient detection and greater transparency. We have made significant progress. That includes advancing work to bring Foreign Influence Transparency and Accountability Act into force. This act strengthens transparency regarding foreign influence activities,
get out of the fucking way, you retard.
Anton Bogman as a Foreign Influence Transparency Commissioner, who will oversee
Lady,
the
you're so
Foreign Influence Transparency Register. As you may be aware, Mr. Chair, I tabled on Monday the name of Mr. Bogman as the proposed commissioner for this registry. The Act also established an administrative monetary penalty regime to support enforcement and discourage violations. On January 2nd, proposed regulations to implement the Act were published online for public consultations. Those consultations closed earlier this week. The proposed regulations identify the information to be collected and published about foreign influence activities, set out administrative monetary penalties of up to $1 million, and establish how we will work with partners at all levels
$1 million
of government
to civilians?
to uphold the Act. I want to reassure all Canadians and my honourable colleagues that the establishment of the registry remains a top priority. These are delicate and complex mechanisms that require deliberate and careful implementation. Equivalent systems in the Five Eyes took over 2 years to fully implement. We are very much on track. These key initiatives make foreign influence transparent and safeguard the integrity.
You just said like it's trying to make Canada into fucking England.
The threat of foreign interference
Nobody has guns?
is complex.
Australia?
Standing up these measures is being done.
So what, we could be usurped by fucking China just like they are?
It's only robust, careful planning that we will continue to be able to
we are
detect
too,
and manage these threats.
The next step is to take our guns away and then
strengthening democratic resilience.
There's no need for a war
during
when
elections and
your opponent has no fucking guns.
This means remaining alert, adapting to new, rapidly evolving threats, and protecting Canadians. Canada's democracy is strong, and we will continue taking action to protect it. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions and comments.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Minister.
right.
I will now
He's
turn
gonna
to
get grilled.
Mr. Cooper
Go,
for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister. Minister, what country is the most active perpetrator of foreign interference targeting our elections and democratic institutions?
Where is he?
Mr. Cooper, I think that's a question best posed to our director from CSIS.
Mr. Chair, through you, we've called out publicly in the past China, Russia.
Oh my
India,
God! I didn't know that
others.
was a thing that could happen.
Thank you for that, and I would note
I can destroy
that
this.
NSCOP in June 2024 identified the People's Republic of China as
What are we
the
so sad?
biggest perpetrator of foreign
Is this so
interference,
sad?
as did Madam Justice Hogue, as did CSIS as recently as
right.
July of 2025. So, in the face of that, and given that we know, and this is to the minister, that the Beijing-based communist regime has
can't shoot it.
engaged in transnational repression, targeting members of Chinese diaspora communities in Canada. It is a regime that has
maybe.
surveilled, harassed, and intimidated members of these communities, and in doing so, it has shown no
Shit. I forgot about
respect
this
for
part. This part's actually
Canada's
sick.
sovereignty, and has actively threatened
bitch.
the safety and security of Canadians. So, given all of that, how could the Prime Minister possibly have thought it was in Canada's interests to strike a deal to pursue cooperation with the Beijing
lifting.
dictatorship on matters of law enforcement? Minister?
The Prime Minister has outlined on a number of occasions, and most recently and more comprehensively in Davos. We are living in times that are unprecedented, one where Canada needs to broaden its relationships. We are the closest partner to the United States. However, we know that the situation and the trading relationship.
Minister, is the PRC a rule of law state? Is it a rule of law state?
If I may just. If you give me the time, I will respond to your question.
My time is very limited, so I'm asking you, is the PRC a rule of law state? Yes or no?
So, Mr. Cooper, I think to your previous question, the Prime Minister has clearly outlined the need for us to expand trade.
I'm asking you about
with countries
pursuing cooperation on law enforcement. So, is it a rule of law state? Yes or no?
Well, Mr.
Does
Cooper,
it have an independent judiciary? Yes or no? These are straightforward questions. Yes or no?
People's Republic of China.
I'm not here as a foreign policy expert, nor
Minister,
an expert on China.
it is
I'm
obvious
here
not our
that
foreign policy,
Beijing is
foreign
not
policy.
a rule of law state. They don't have an independent judiciary. Do they have civilian oversight of police in Beijing?
Mr. Cooper, to your...
Do they respect human rights?
Catch this one.
Does Beijing-based communist regime respect human rights? Yes or no?
Mr. Cooper, if you wish for me to answer the question,
Then
I
answer
will
it.
give you a proper answer. As the Prime
It's
Minister
a yes or no
has
question,
clearly
bud.
outlined
Like,
both at Davos and in many other speeches, there is a need.
That's not
Canada
you
to
answering the question.
expand
That's you
its
referencing the
trading
Prime
partners.
Minister.
China is one of them.
I didn't ask you a question
China's a
about
foreign
trading
interferer.
partners. I asked you
economy.
about
Their values don't
cooperation
fucking
on
align with
matters
us.
of law
So
enforcement.
how the
Cooper,
fuck
if I can intervene
do you
here just
justify
for a second.
cutting ties with the U.S.?
We'll pause your time.
Closest and most similar ally makes sense to trade with them.
This
Seems
is
the
a
most
very
funny.
serious issue, and
But now we're gonna trade
members have
across
right
a
to
fucking
be
ocean
passionate
with
about
fucking
this.
China.
Just keeping in mind our interpreters.
Fucking jails
it
people
is your
for
time. You
their
are correct.
beliefs.
Just if we can be careful of talking.
Just threw a reporter in jail for 20 years, an elderly
So does
reporter.
Beijing respect human rights? Yes or no?
He's got Canadian ties. And
Mr.
now we
Cooper,
want to get
what I would
closer
say
ties
is
with these
that
people.
Canada is at a crossroads right now. There's a need and an imperative for Canada to expand its trading relationships, and Canada
Fuck
can
no.
do both. Canada could
Yeah, you can
protect
expand-
and speak out on
expand
human
the trading
rights at the same
relationships with
time.
Minister, I
You're not
asked you
acknowledging
four
our
questions.
safety at all.
Straightforward questions.
Because he
of
knows
which the
China
answer is
absolutely
no.
will not.
Beijing,
They won't put up with
Beijing
any
communist
scrutiny. So
regime
if we
is
want
not
any type of
a rule
trade
of
deal
law
with them,
state.
we
Point of
have to
order.
suck their dick and bend the knee. Or
I mean,
else.
the committee agreed. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Chair, I want to listen to the conversation, but we can't have a conversation if we're speaking over each other. We can't even hear the answer.
There's no answer.
Either we have a conversation or we don't.
There is no answer.
So
there's no conversation. It's him repeating
himself.
Reinforcing
what I say. We did pause your time, Mr. Cooper, but please keep. You have 2 minutes left.
But yeah.
Same.
Different point of order.
Different point of order. Yes, go ahead.
The committee actually agreed that we would have 2 meetings on the implementation of the Foreign Influence Transparency Registry, and for that purpose invite the Minister of Public Safety. I have a hard time understanding how Mr. Cooper's questions have anything to do with what this committee agreed to actually do.
With the greatest of respect to Mr. Wilkinson, who I have respect for, it seems that he must have missed the testimony of Mr. Tay, among others, who have been targeted by the Beijing-based communist regime. And here we have a government, your government, that is entering into cooperation on matters of law enforcement
with people that are,
regime that is
and the 2 fucking Michaels.
Including interactions.
I appreciate the intervention.
How is that funny? I think it's hilarious.
When the minister is here,
I think it's hilarious because they're going to get away with telling him that he's wrong
He's correct in terms of. I do believe this is relevant, but
it
there
is
generally more latitude given. So we will, and it is delving into debate, but we will turn back to Mr. Cooper.
Trying to do this without killing
the PRC is not a rule of law state. They don't have an independent judiciary. They don't have civilian oversight of law enforcement. They don't respect human rights. They're actively perpetrating genocide, among other crimes against humanity. And the fact that the minister couldn't answer no to all of those questions illustrates the degree to which this government, under this prime minister, is prepared to downplay and whitewash the serious interference in human rights abuses, among other outrageous conduct, by a brutal dictatorship, all in the name of his new strategic partnership with that brutal dictatorship. So, Minister, given that your government is engaging in greater cooperation, or is moving in that direction with the Beijing regime on matters of law enforcement, what assurance can you provide that cooperation with Beijing will not lead to facilitating intimidation, coercion,
having them establish themselves on Canadian soil.
Particularly members of diaspora communities who are being targeted by Beijing under the guise of law enforcement.
He just wants to know what extra steps are you taking for making deals with people that are holding our people hostage and causing fucking problems.
RCMP has critical significance for Canada. As you're aware, issues around fentanyl, for example, is something that has
issues around fentanyl, that are coming from China.
We curtail fentanyl and precursors in particular coming through our ports from places like China are critically important, and the MOU addresses greater cooperation with respect to law enforcement on issues of critical interest to us. The notion of our national security is again embedded.
That there are no safeguards.
Mr. Cooper, if you're giving me a preamble and allow me, if it's a point of order, if I may. If you're giving me a longer preamble and allowing me to answer the question, Mr. Cooper, that's really not constructive in a conversation as sensitive as this. Okay, so if you're taking time to give me a set of facts, allow me to please give you context in which I'm addressing this matter.
Minister, I appreciate you were a committee member for many years, but as a witness, you cannot raise a point of order. But that being said, we're well over 6 minutes. So we will turn to Mr. Wilkinson, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all the witnesses for appearing. Maybe just starting with, in the design of the Act, I'm assuming that we looked at other international comparators. So, are there similar kinds of registries that exist in other democratic countries? What best practices did we take in the design of our Act?
Thank you. And look, when the Act was developed, we looked at a number of different options, particularly from Five Eyes G7 partners, who some of them have had a similar act for many decades. In fact, Canada is somewhat at the later stage of development of these acts. So we learned a fair bit from that. And as we developed at the implementation stage, so there's 3 elements to it. The first being the appointment of the commissioner, which we're at the end of that process. We had last week started consulting with opposition and parties, both in the House and the Senate. I formally tabled the name of the proposed commissioner on Monday. We look forward to a vote on this matter in both houses. This is coupled by consultation of our draft regulations, and we received a fair number of feedback on a range of issues, particularly on the monetary penalties. So we're looking into to finalizing that over the next several weeks. And the third element is establishing and making sure that we have a functional data collection ability. Again, that work is happening. On the administrative side, finding the office, making sure it has requirements, the renovation that's required. All of that is happening in parallel. So we're hoping within the next, early spring, we will be able to have both the office as well as the registry fully operational.
Great, thank you. Obviously, the role of the commissioner is going to be an important role, given how important foreign interference is. Maybe you can just speak to Mr. Bogman's background and why he was the right choice.
Thank you, and Mr. Wilkinson.
Why is Mr. Bogan
British Columbia,
right
as well
choice?
as Mr. Van Popta. I think you would appreciate the caliber of Mr. Bogman. He has served as Chief Elections Commissioner in British Columbia. I believe he is. On top of that, he has been involved with a number of issues around foreign interference in British Columbia, which has in the past there's been some challenges.
Am I supposed to go down there?
He's run 3 general elections, conducted 3 general elections and 12 by-elections. Previously, he served in other roles within British Columbia. He is fully bilingual, someone who, by all accounts, is unimpeachable and who is of high integrity.
Unimpeachable,
so we wanted to make
high
sure
integrity.
that
What do you mean?
the individual who's named as commissioner will have the confidence of Canadians, will have the administrative ability to establish a new registry and functionalities of this commission, and be able
Fuck is
to,
unimpeachable. You're telling me he's like, how do you know he's
an
unimpeachable?
important
He's a fucking
safeguard
robot. He
to
can't be
our
corrupted. He can't be impeached. What do you mean?
Thank you. As I
Want
understand
ministers
it, you
who
can correct me
have
if I'm wrong,
unchecked
the
fucking
commissioner's
power?
office is to be housed within public safety, but is to operate independently from the department and the minister. Can you just tell me a little bit about how that will work and also why that model was chosen?
Look, we have a number of different agencies. Like we have the portfolio agencies, CSIS, CBSA, RCMP, and so on, that are independent agencies. Then we have what I would consider to be smaller, focused agencies, so Parole Board of Canada, the Office of the Correctional Investigator, and we're adding the Commissioner to that slate of commissions. They act fully independently of public safety, although the reporting will happen through public safety and me as minister. They're independent in all ways, in every manner. The funding of it, again, they seek funding authorities independently. We support them on an administrative basis. We would support them. But we have a number of models where it has worked exceptionally well. And my role as minister and Deputy Minister Geddes would be to support them without directing them in any way.
Do I still have time? Okay.
This sounds like communist China. Yes, my role is to never doubt my fellow colleagues, and our word is a rock.
Maybe you can talk to me about how it fits in the broader context, because obviously
Yes, the public has an opinion. Only after the government has reinforced that opinion and approved of the opinion.
Pieces as part of
the public has an opinion.
The election cycle, as you're aware. So during elections, we have our portfolio leaders as well as PCO that meet regularly and that report on a weekly basis to Canadians, and we've seen that over the last election cycle. We also have ongoing work of
Rats, you gave me the old spicy ball.
CSIS and Director Rogers would be more than glad to outline the ongoing work that they do along with the RCMP.
Thank you so much. Now turn to Madame Normandin. 6 minutes.
Merci beaucoup. Merci.
6 minutes. Thank you. Thank you to the witnesses. Thank you to those who are here twice this week, even more. I'd like to hear your perspective on
who are here twice this week.
Earlier this
You
week,
get paid
we talked about the
$500,000
fact
a
that there's an
fucking year and
analysis
you only have to
done
show up to work twice a week. Holy fuck
of
me.
metadata
Give me my
on
politician
foreign
fucking. Where do I
interference.
sign
So
up?
I imagine there's a huge amount of data to
Hey,
look
thank
at
you guys for being
to
here
identify
twice
whether
this
there are
week.
threats from
I know you only get
outside.
paid $500,000
I'd like
a
to hear
year
your
to fucking
perspective on where
twiddle your
those data
thumbs
are
and
stored.
fucking pat yourself on the back, but
Are the data on
thank you so
servers
much. I
that
really
are
appreciate
in
it.
Canada only?
Would you like a sucker
And
too?
another aspect, with so much data, I imagine we have to use artificial intelligence to analyze the data. If that's the
What?
case,
In
what
Canada, you
AI
have to
system
use
are we
AI
using?
to analyze the data.
Are they
Look,
systems
notice how
that
she covered her
already
mouth when she
exist,
said that.
or is there an
We have to
in-house
analyze,
system
the data.
that's
We have to use
private?
AI to analyze the data.
Merci,
That
Madame
AI will be
Normandin,
vetted
pour
by
la
Chinese
question.
Thank you,
people,
Ms. Normandin, for the
to
question.
Indian people, and ran by Chinese and Indian people.
To answer that, I know
Is the
there's a
AI
fair
going to be
bit
ran
of,
by Canadians? Are the prompts that the AI uses going to be established by Canadians, or what AI are we using? Who's making this AI?
Microphone, please.
Oh, le micro. Ok, désolé.
Oh, le
merci
micro.
pour la question.
Thank you for the question. For most of the data
Why are they answering in two different
that
languages?
are
And this French is fucking
in
abhorrent.
our control,
Merci pour la
That
question.
are in Canada, within our facilities, very guarded and very secure, with access controls to make sure that it's limited to those who need to conduct investigations in order to access that data, which accounts for both privacy and security concerns. With respect to artificial intelligence, you're absolutely right. It's something that CSIS has to adopt. It's something we are currently adopting.
Bull fucking
and we
shit.
have to do that
AI
in
is
order to keep
retarded.
pace with our competitors and the overall environment to keep Canadians safe.
I mean, it does.
We
okay,
are doing
it
that
does
in
help in
accordance with some of the direction already
sense.
set out for the federal
Some
public service, which includes
things.
making like there are a number of provisions
But
in some of those policies
It's,
issued by
it's,
Treasury
it's,
Board.
there's
which
no
we've also
automated. There's an
adopted,
automated program
including making
vetted
sure
by
humans
humans
are in the loop,
that
making
work
sure we have
just
a
the same.
gradual,
They'll organize
responsible
everything.
process for the
They can
rollout
vet
of
the
AI,
data,
and making sure
and
that
then it's
we're
vetted
looking
by
at the
humans.
processes
It's
within
not
our
a
AI
fucking
systems
liberal
to make sure
retard
that
going,
they're,
oh, the
you know,
computer said,
responsibly
oh, the
tested and
computer said,
validated
there's
before
no
they're put
human
into
involved, the
production.
human can't
We're still
calculate.
at a stage
The
where all of
computer's
the
right.
decision making within CSIS is overseen by humans. We're not in a zone
Yeah.
where we're at risk of that for now, but we're continuing to implement.
J'aimerais continuer un petit peu là-dessus.
I'd like to
We're not at risk
continue on
right
that
now, but
note.
we're trying to implement
And thinking of
risks.
different
Like what?
tools we use as parliamentarians on a daily basis. We use Outlook,
Not
and
at
we
risk.
know it belongs to the United States, and the databases are perhaps outside of Canada. The United
so it's
States may
just some
have
communist
rights of
program.
access via the Patriot Act, the Cloud
They have.
Act.
They absolutely have
So
rights and
what is your
access.
perspective on that aspect? Is there a cloud that is sovereign to Canada? Because Minister Solomon was questioned
Canada
on
shouldn't
this,
have a
and
cloud
there
at all.
isn't.
If you don't want to be compromised, you
If we
shouldn't have
use
your
cloud
sensitive
services
information
here,
on a
we
fucking
know that
cloud.
we're potentially
retard.
vulnerable via the United States, but perhaps elsewhere too.
If you could use cloud
Thank you
services,
once
period,
again.
you're vulnerable. You shouldn't have air gap.
I can answer the
Any
question
type of
once again.
fucking.
But I'd like to say that officials from Treasury Board and Shared Services Canada would be a bit more able to answer this question regarding government plans.
You know, data sovereignty continues to be a concern when it comes to vulnerabilities that foreign states could take advantage of. It is certainly more secure and better to have data controlled within a Canadian legal context. That said,
Canadian
when data is
physical
held
and legal
outside of the Canadian
context. Legal
there are
context
still
isn't going to do
measures that
shit
can
if
be
our
put in
servers are
place
out
to
in
keep
China.
that data secure, including things like encryption, where encryption keys are held in Canada, access controls, auditing, and logging to make sure that that data, when accessed,
Is
we
in
are aware of
Canada.
that access. So there are technical measures that can be put in
Oh,
place.
okay. The keys are in
For
Canada,
government
but
data,
well,
as I
what about
mentioned earlier,
people that
Treasury
implement
Board
those
and Shared
keys,
Services
programs
Canada are better able
that
to answer that.
that give
And
those keys?
specifically for CSIS in a classified environment with us, with Department of Defense and CSE and other high security
Oh shit, my
environments,
shit got fucking
RCMP,
unjuiced.
You know, we
Fuck
have
me.
special systems with special provisions to make sure that our most sensitive data is kept secure and in Canada.
Bull fucking shit. It's already
Question
compromised
pour
to
Monsieur
fucking
Ministre.
hell.
Thank you.
China's
Question for the
all over
Minister.
Canada. They've owned the West
One of the problems we've
since
seen
they
is
own
trade
oil
interference.
fucking refineries. Or
We've
not
seen
refineries.
China try to
They own
acquire
oil
Canadian
companies all along
companies
the Trail of
of great
Tears out
importance.
west.
There's the issue of critical minerals
Look at
in
the
the
CEO,
north.
blah blah blah.
I'd
Oh,
like
it's
to
a
hear your
Canadian.
perspective
Okay,
on
yeah.
the criteria
Who owns that
that would allow us
corporation?
to limit
Who pays that
purchases
CEO?
by
Where does that
China of
CEO come
Canadian
from? He didn't
companies.
start his
When
oil
it's
company
China
from his dad's
buying a
basement.
company, it's not private companies buying, it's the government. So criteria like the size of the
It
acquisition.
is private companies. It's private
the
companies
percentage
in
of Chinese
tandem with the
ownership,
government, and then the
the
government can
industry,
deny it because
would that be at the basis
of
of decisions? And why does it
because
take
of
so long
private
for a decision to be
contract
made?
clauses.
Because often
Oh, you
that's
can't-
a
oh,
problem.
sorry, this is a private
It takes a
contract.
long
You're not allowed to
time
know
to block
the
something in the name of national
details
security.
of it, but it's a public government
Thank you.
private contract.
Very important question.
What?
The Investment Canada Act has prescriptions
Government has
in terms of
hideous
foreign
lobbyist issues.
investment in Canada.
Their fingers
so
in
it is a
all,
robust
everything the
process.
MPs do.
So the element,
The
first
MPs are
piece
getting
of
kickbacks to
it
their
is undertaken by
corporations
Industry
that
Canada,
they're
Ministry
involved
of,
with,
industry,
getting
and
contracts for
then it
their own
comes to,
businesses, their own
public
corporations,
safety
government
for
contracts.
review and comment. And if there are concerns, oftentimes
Review and
we
what?
will seek
Comment?
additional time for us to undertake a thorough review. It doesn't always mean it's a rejection of the actual proposal. Oftentimes there's mitigation measures that are in place. It has been working, fairly effectively, and I recognize the frustrations in terms of time, but when we do make a negative decision, we have to be absolutely certain, and we take the time to do our due diligence in a very concrete way. I know Director Rogers as well as the RCMP are very much, along with public safety, are intricately involved in this process.
I'll cut you off there.
Okay, that's
we're
good.
well over. We'll turn back to Mr. Cooper for 5 minutes, please.
Well over.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, you moments ago set down another stake in the ground, so to speak, in what is a moving goalpost with respect to getting the Foreign Influence Registry up and running. You say that it will be up and running in early spring, but I'll remind you of the timeline. Nearly 2 years ago, when the legislation to establish such a registry was before Parliament, your predecessor,
11 MPs
Dominic
compromised.
LeBlanc, promised that the registry would be up and running before the
But
federal
now the
election.
registry
That
cannot
didn't
be
happen.
established
Then your
because
government
I'm
promised
getting
that it
paid
would be up
very
and
well
running
from China,
by June of
so
2025.
it's going to take a couple
That
more
didn't
years to
happen either.
implement.
Then you, Minister, promised that it would be up and running by December of 2025. That didn't happen. It's now
Yeah, because they're getting
February
kickbacks from China. Every time they
2026, and
push
you
that
set
back, they
down,
get like a fucking another
another,
$100,000 check.
timeline, another date. So given
I do the
a
fucking same thing.
record
I do
of
the same
making
fucking
commitments
thing.
that it would be up
I'm
and
looking
running
up, sign up. Where do I
three
sign up?
times, 3 different dates.
I want to be an MP. Tell Canadians,
Each
oh yeah,
time
man,
you
we're
miss
fine. Oh
the
yeah.
deadline.
Everything's
Why
okay.
should we
Keep
have
voting for me.
confidence that that's going to happen?
We get cheap
now?
healthcare, cheap dental, cheap everything.
Look,
It'll be free.
I share the frustration that you have in
I'm gonna live in the fucking
delays,
Sky City,
involved
and you're
getting
gonna
to
live in
this
fucking
point.
poverty
But
land
what I
with
can
Chinese and
assure
Indians.
this committee
But they're
is
fucking
that,
dregs.
all the requisite
They treat
work,
each other like they're gonna treat you.
have been done, essentially complete. So with
They think their whole
respect to
fucking
the
country's
three
a fucking
elements I
nightmare.
talked about, so the first
It's not because they all
one
get along
being
and they take care of each other.
appointment of Commissioner. We have canvassed with your party, with
Because they
the
step on
Bloc,
heads, and if we're
along
gonna
with,
start the head stepping game, I better get it. I better get ahead.
groups in the Senate.
Gonna start fucking crushing
tabled,
neck bones
a
soon.
formal request, and we will have a vote on that in the near future.
Minister, I'm going to ask you to be a little clearer. When you say early spring, what is that? What does that mean? What is early spring?
So if I may just, I advise you on the first piece. The second piece is the
I'm asking you
regulations.
for what is the latest timeline? You've given months. So
Right,
what is the month? Is it April? Is it May?
I'm not going to give you an exact month, Mr. Cooper, but I will say we are targeting, like, the work has been done, right? So the first piece is the commissioner.
Well,
the second element is the
Greatest
regulations
respect-
which are
with
ready
greatest
to be
respect, your
They're
government
hunters, though.
has dragged
They're
its
stalkers.
feet, and I'll remind you that for years,
Oh, we got it.
your government opposed and obstructed the creation of a foreign influence
Anyway, I think
registry.
we got
Just
it. Yeah, we got
before
it. We just
the
gotta flare this
2021
obvious and nice.
election, then Conservative MP
And
Kenny Chu
not
introduced a
fire-
private
or
member's
only
bill to
fire one
establish a
bullet.
foreign influence registry. As a result of his advocacy for a registry, MP Chu was drowned by a sea of Beijing-directed disinformation, costing him his seat, disinformation that was amplified by the Liberal Party in Steveston, Richmond East, only after Madam Justice Hoag's damning report did your government finally put forward legislation to establish such a registry, which the national security establishment has been calling for years. So after opposing and obstructing a registry, isn't it the case that the new strategy is one of endless delay by your government? Because if it was such a priority, it would surely be up and running now.
I would categorically reject your assertion on this, Mr. Cooper. What I will say is the commission itself, the initial Hoag inquiry was called by this government. When we
where's my fucking piece of metal, you whore?
Formed government, it was a top priority for him. We've been identifying the appropriate commissioner. That name is now before the House. We have completed the work. Essentially completed the work on the regulations. There's some recommendations, including from members of your party, that I'm taking into account and I will revise before the final regulations are tabled. And then the system itself will be up and running. So my commitment to this committee and to all Canadians is that the registry will be up and running in the spring.
Minister, registry's not in place. The office isn't open, and it's been more than 2 years. And your government talks a lot about obstruction, which is ironic,
but
because
never looks into it.
That's
the whole point of being corrupted.
To get Bill C
so you say we're looking into it, and then you never look into it. But Canadian people are too fucking stupid, so they go, oh,
and what we have seen,
they say everything's cheaper and they're looking into it, so I guess I'll vote for them again. They're gonna get on it. They keep saying they're gonna.
Your feet to get
it's something that happens immediately. It's not something that takes 2 years, 1 year, half a year. It's not done within 5 months. Something's wrong. It's already you're already too far gone. You're already corrupt.
Including from hostile foreign states, foreign interference that you have now downplayed in this committee when you refuse
100%. Every left and right downplaying everything. Won't even fart in China's direction. Oh no, China. We need to expand our trade partners. That's what it is.
The Beijing-based communist regime is a perpetrator of human rights, doesn't respect the rule of law, doesn't have independent oversight over law enforcement, and now your government sees fit to do a deal on law enforcement with the Beijing-based communist regime. I don't know how Canadians could possibly have a confidence in your government.
We're well over. So we'll turn to Madame Kaibaga.
Fuck out of here.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I'd like to welcome the Minister. I think I have a different memory from what my colleague just talked about. As far as I'm concerned, the Conservatives have long talked about, being tough on crime, but have obstructed every single bill that the Minister has actually put forward in this Parliament.
Every bill that you guys put forward is a fucking draconian nightmare. It's an omnibus that shoots in
presenting the Commissioner before the House. And I'm not sure if this question has been asked before, but how quickly do you think the Foreign Interference Transparency Registry will be set up? And can you just explain a little bit of how that use is going to look like for the public?
Sure. Look, there's 3 major elements to it, and I outlined them. In terms of status, I think I've given you status as to where
these are the bills that the Liberals put forward. Okay, so we're going to take all the pedophiles off the internet. Oh, great. But also, with those powers, if anybody doubts us or says that we're not working fast enough, they're going to go to jail too, and they're going to be labeled pedophile. Wait, what?
We received feedback.
What's that? What's that second part? Pedophiles in jail, yes.
But I've also received
what's that second part?
Feedback from
anybody who criticizes us and says we're going too slow, they're also going to go to jail for 10 years.
And I value those comments.
Even if they didn't touch children? Yes, even if they didn't touch children. If they tell us we're going too slow, we're not getting the pedophiles off the internet fast enough, we're going to jail them for 10 years.
From colleagues in the
yeah, so why don't you put the bill forward? Why don't you put it forward? You like pedophiles? Oh, you must be a pedophile lover because you don't want to give us the power to put anybody in jail who criticizes us on top of the pedophiles.
So you must be a pedophile on what that would look like.
So double fucking speak,
such as
fucking 1984 bullshit. Your
your
brother's watching you. We're here to help you. Just give up all your fucking rights and all your property and everything.
We will be incorporating the changes over the next 2
weeks.
Give us
the ability to
formally
fucking
gazetted,
harvest your organs and
so the regulations
toss
will be
you
in place.
and
The
bury
third
you in
element
a
is
field and
the
have nobody
system
question
that
it, nobody
will be
protest,
required
and then everything
for
will
the
be
regime
fine.
to be operational.
Oh,
and
yeah,
again,
that makes
work is being done, and we're very
for
confident that will be complete.
Just give us all the
in
power and
time,
immunity, and
for both the commissioner and the regulations,
we'll make it work for you.
To be in place.
And there's so much double speak by these fucking
there are some
libs.
colleagues that have had concerns about the foreign
I mean,
interference.
the conservatives are fucking
cyberspace.
too.
And we
It's
also
all a
live in an
theater.
increasingly digital and interconnected world. Malicious actors are leveraging
Digital and
emerging
interconnected
technologies
world.
to
It
conduct
doesn't have to be.
surveillance
It never
and
was.
espionage,
Literally
online
manufacturing
harassment
it,
and
but
digital
okay.
disruption against the perceived adversaries. Can you maybe outline for this committee if you could just kind of go through the steps that the government is taking to counter cyber threats, actors involved in transnational repression and foreign interference?
Yeah, what do we have?
There are a number of different ways in which this is addressed. So one is through CSC, and I'm not sure if she has, the director has appeared here, but they are very much in the front line of ensuring our cybersecurity is safe and secure.
CSC.
We also have a cybersecurity center out of Brampton that again do a lot of the work around
cybersecurity out of Brampton. Yeah,
sure our systems are protected. We have LC8 that's
Indian
now
cybersecurity
through,
out of Brampton. Really good.
The
a lot of them
House,
from
as
India.
we speak, there's
Cybersecurity managed by foreign entities. It's really good.
So hopefully we will have a critical infrastructure being, very much protected and disclosure of potential threats.
Let's look up CSC.
Other institutions and infrastructure could be ready. So we made a number
Education
of
time.
We have a number.
CSC Cybersecurity Canada. Canadian Center for Cybersecurity. Canada's single unified source. Cyber.gc.ca. Report a cyber incident. That's cool, but who runs the organization? Jesus. Okay, yeah, okay. Canadian Center for Cybersecurity, Product Communications. Okay, yeah, that's fine. ComSec, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, this is all about the Cyber Center. Executive teams. Rajiv Gupta. Head of the Canadian Center for Cybersecurity, Cyber Center, part of the Communication Security Establishment Canada. As head, Rajiv leads the cyber. Prior to his role, Rajiv served as associate head of Cyber Center for 3 years. He was responsible for achieving national-level cybersecurity outcomes for Canada through collaborative efforts with industry partners. Interesting. CSC in 2007, I'll number leadership roles in cybersecurity domain, including Director of General Cyber Defense Capabilities. Jonathan Ouellette, Patrick Clau. Yeah, a lot of Frenchers in there. That makes sense. Ferguson, cyber mission integration. I mean, they seem all legit. I mean, all right. Seems legit. I don't know. I have to look into his past some more. Previous to that role, he's Director of Security Architecture, Risk Management, responsible for security architecture guidance, supply chain, cloud risk assessments, Government of Canada, Foundation of Cybersecurity Risk Mitigation Framework for Canada's telecommunications sector. She holds a bachelor's degree in engineering, is a professional engineer in the province of Ontario. Very nice, very nice. And now let's check. Sector. For the past 2 decades, Canada has experienced a significant evolution in the scale, sophistication, and frequency of cyber attacks driven by both criminal and state-sponsored actors. Rising incidents and trends. The number of reported cyber incidents in Canada has grown substantially from 2010 to 2023. The total number of incidents rose from 5,005, low to critical severity, to over 22,000. Wow. that Rajiv guy is really good at at protecting our cybersecurity. Since he implemented himself into the system in 2007, and from 2010 to 2023, we've had over 4 times as many cyber attacks. Wow, wow, that's who we're hiring for our cyber fucking defense. Wow, we're giving him more power. Wow. Wow, I hate researching. This is why I don't look into these things. This is why I never look into my fucking government. Wow. Major cyber attacks and breaches. High-profile breaches have targeted critical infrastructure, government agencies, and private sector organizations. 2015, a major breach at Rogers Communication exposed internal data and customer records after hacktivist group Team Hans leaked emails and documents. Wasn't there a recent leak where an Indian call center worker leaked Carney's personal information, his address and shit? 2017, TIO Networks, a Canadian payments platform owned by PayPal, suffered a breach affecting 1.6 million customers due to unauthorized access to its network. 2023-2024, multiple high-profile attacks occurred during breaches at Global Affairs Canada, FinTrack, RCMP, Toronto Zoo, Toronto Public Library, Sick Kids Hospital, Sobeys, often linked to ransomware. State-sponsored groups, City of Hamilton, and Trans Northern Pipelines are also targeted, underscoring the growing threat to municipal and energy infrastructure. And that's the guy who runs shit. Okay. All right. They're doing a really good job, eh? Okay. All right. I'll take your word for it.
Number of different measures that
go ahead. Brampton and Rajiv and all them, they're doing real good. Okay.
I think I would say is as
it's just more sophisticated. It's because it's so sophisticated.
Law enforcement
the fact that it's not 100,000 cyber attacks is because Rajiv is so qualified and good at it,
and we're hopeful again
and not compromised.
That we can advance
Otherwise, it'd be 100,000 cyber attacks over the last 20 years instead of the regular 50,000
law enforcement has the tools to directly
low rate
target and stop cyber attacks.
Yeah, hopefully our colleagues will stop obstructing the Bill C2 so we can actually get forward. If you could just talk
hopefully
about
our colleagues will stop obstructing Bill C2 so we can get the bill forward. How is that addressing
the Arctic and North
Canadian
region, a little
like
bit about
fucking
that.
national
I don't
security,
have a lot of time left,
cybersecurity?
but in a few seconds, I'm sure other colleagues could allow you to finish that question.
You're literally putting more fucking
Look,
distance
I would
between
say
us.
From
Like
you're
trying to cause more separation in Canada,
and Arctic sovereignty
which is again
would be my number
causing
one
bullshit.
Issue that.
Okay, so I get one bullet, and the bullet I get is to open this fucking gate.
Proactively addressing all of our portfolio agencies, the RCMP, who have a footprint in the Arctic, CSIS, we have increasing resources there, as well as CBSA, all have a footprint in the Arctic, particularly in Nunavut. We are, as a department, in the process of making sure that we have a presence there as well. But it is important that all Canadians, and particularly those in law enforcement, have a direct link and prioritize the Arctic as an area of vulnerability.
Thank you so much. We'll turn to Madame Normandin. 2.5 minutes, please.
Open the fucking door, bitch.
Thank you very much. I asked a question about the purchase of companies by China, and I understood the process
Hackerman
for decision making. I'd like to hear a perspective on the process for signing agreements for the acquisition, the importation of products from China, for example, and I'm referring obviously to the 49,000 vehicles. That might be little spies on the road that could record.
That might be little spies. They're 100%, bro. They're fully fucking interconnected to everything. Half the EVs can't work unless you're connected to the fucking internet.
Is it similar to the process for the acquisition of companies in the view of national security?
Look, issues around both privacy and security, and especially national security, I think are critical, and all Canadians are vulnerable in so many ways, right? So I have a phone here. Every one of us at this table has a phone.
All Canadians
probably has more
so many ways.
Capabilities of gathering personal information than any other advanced device, or equal to any other advanced device.
It's all the same shit, bro.
When we talk about vehicles coming in, particularly from China, what you're referencing in terms of the agreement. I think what's critical for us, and the Minister of Transport is well aware of, is to make sure that whatever vehicles are here do not have the capability to transmit information to other
but they will. Half those vehicles can't work without an app.
Very much, I think, in line with our national security priorities.
Si vous me permettez, Monsieur le Ministre, j'aimerais entendre le processus.
If I may, Minister, I'd like to hear the process.
She has a good French
Earlier,
accent.
Mr. Rogers mentioned that CSIS is involved when there are acquisitions of companies. Is CSIS involved, for example, when there's a signing of a trade agreement?
They absolutely should be.
Merci pour la question.
Thank you for the question. CSIS is involved.
Advice on issues like this. I would say the process is different than the Investment Canada Act process, which is much more formalized and regularized through a process that public safety coordinates. Our normal processes include having us provide intelligence and advice to the government around types of technologies, types of threat actors that the government takes into account in its decision making. If we're requested to provide specific advice on a particular
decision, you just give advice. You don't actually.
Thank you
I thought
so
CSIS
much.
was like fucking our
We'll
top
now
dogs,
turn to,
researching
Mr.
everything,
Colkins for
looking
5
at
minutes,
everything, like our
Thank
five
you, Chair.
eyes,
Minister, you've been
scrutinizing everything, not just going, oh, we just give advice.
as
No,
have
we
I.
just give advice.
You have been in cabinet. You've been not in cabinet.
Perfect.
You would know that
Excellent.
members
We
of
don't have
Parliament
any
from time to
organizations
time
like the
travel as
FBI,
part of
DARPA,
international,
fucking
delegations. I know I have a few
Boston
times. I'm assuming
Dynamics,
you have
Area
as well, as a
51.
regular member
It's
of
just a
Parliament.
bunch of retards that give advice. Great.
The only
that
times
makes us
that
look
I've
really
ever seen
strong.
MPs
Makes us look like
being
we
recalled
fucking
from international trips is generally when there's a confidence vote in the House, and I think you and I would both agree that there was no
Get it.
confidence vote when the Prime
let's
Minister
fucking
was in China. Is that correct?
I
mean, it's a very simple question.
Well, first of all, I don't believe I've gone on international travel. I will sponsor travel anyway, so I will put that on the record. I will say that it's up to each individual MPs to decide how long they're on a mission. And there's been cases where people have come back early, have stayed later on.
If you don't want to, I mean, I'm sitting here looking at this. As a member of Parliament, I've traveled. Most members of Parliament have traveled at some point in time. You might be the only exception, but I have never seen anybody recalled from an international trip, whether it's sponsored travel or otherwise, unless they had a health concern or unless there was, and I've been recalled from Europe when we had a minority parliament when Stephen Harper was the Prime Minister. And my question to you is quite simply this. It was very obvious to everybody who was paying attention that 2 Liberal MPs left early. It doesn't appear to be for any health reasons. It couldn't possibly be for a confidence vote because the House of Commons wasn't in session. So the question I have, Minister, is did the Beijing regime ask your government to remove those 2 MPs from that trip? Or were you so afraid of the optics of it that you, in fear of Beijing, asked your own MPs to come home early?
This is well outside of my scope of expertise, Mr. Colkins. I will say that if I recall, not all the Liberal
Look at this
MPs
guy's face. He just
returned,
loves it.
including the chair.
Oh,
so I would say that you should pose this question to somebody who may be able to answer this question.
Well, the question.
So why did the 2 MPs come back though? Why were they sent back?
It's here because it's present
It's just
in
weird
my
that
mind
2 are sent back.
I'm
Are
trying
they
to
sick
be
or
confident that you actually have
or
and will have the best interests.
is government calling the shots for our
when it comes
fucking
to implementing
MPs?
this foreign agent registry because you've missed every deadline so far. Your government
missing
is now
deadlines for
engaged in
investigating the
conversations
11
about shared
compromised
security
foreign
environments
MPs.
with,
We confirm there's
the
MPs
regime
compromised. They're still in
Beijing.
Parliament 2
And
years later.
you've missed
How the
all of
fuck
your
does that make
deadlines
sense?
for this,
That doesn't scream
for this registry.
already
So I
compromised
need
to fucking
know
hell.
if the regime in Beijing is actually influencing any of the decisions that our government is making under
100%
threat,
they are.
or under threat of
100% they
retaliation, or under any other type of threat, or out of any fear that your government has in conducting these
Trades,
negotiations,
deals, yeah.
and putting Canadians and our democracy at risk.
Absolutely not. With respect to the timeline for the
these
transparency
fuckers
registry, I
on
will
fire.
say other countries who have established these registries have taken them upwards of 2 years. So I will.
Why did it take you so long? I mean, you've missed your goals are self-imposed. We didn't impose
Well,
them.
Mr. Colkins, I'm the 3rd minister within the timeline that we're talking about from the time the act has gone into place. So I will take responsibility for the tenure of my leadership in this portfolio, and I will say we have been working diligently to make sure that all three elements that I outlined earlier
Will you
are
commit to
fulfilled.
making sure that the registry is in place and the commissioner is in place and it's staffed and ready to go before the next general election? Because we're already at the next general election.
Are we?
Well, you've already missed. Your government committed to having this in place by the next general election.
Let me say.
Your next opportunity is the next.
I'm not going to make
election.
a commitment on a vote that is not in my hands, right? So vote is a free vote in Parliament where we don't know how other parties will vote. What I will say is we're making every effort, and if you want to hear from the Deputy Minister, more than willing to have her comment. We will make every effort. I will make every effort, and I will commit to working diligently to ensuring that the registry is up and running by early spring.
Are you sure that after the completion and the implementation of your foreign registry that it won't interfere in any way with Canadians voting in the next general election, whenever that happens to be?
Well, this is one tool, Mr. Calkins. This is not the only tool. There's other tools that you've heard from previously. This is definitely an important tool with respect to our democracy.
Ordinary, lawful Canadians from being able to vote, correct?
Well, this is not a panacea. If I may be very candid, it is a very important tool. One of several recommendations of the Hogue inquiry, and of course others have recommended this as well, including, I believe, this committee. It is one of several tools. So this in itself will not solve all of our issues with respect to elections, but it certainly will assist us.
Thank you so much. We will turn to Mr. Lewis for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister, for being here, and for everyone for your service, and for keeping Canadians safe and keeping our elections secure. The actions taken by all of you have shown that foreign interference is taken seriously in Canada, and I appreciate that.
No, it isn't.
Minister,
well, yeah, our
continuing
guys,
on
yeah,
what you were saying. You were saying the Foreign Influence Transparency Registry and the Commissioner are important tools, but they're not the only tools that will work to protect
what are the other tools?
Democracy. Can you expand on our government's other efforts, how we can work together to counter foreign influence and interference, whether it's CSIS, RCMP, CSE, you're all at the table, but no one's working in silos here. Can you explain the cooperation that happens?
Yeah, thank you. And I may just ask each of our portfolio representative here to comment on it. So maybe we'll start with Ms. Bordeaux.
Portfolio representatives.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that question. We work very closely with our partners, the service, other public safety partners. We investigate every complaint of foreign interference. Our primary role is to keep Canadians safe and secure. So whether it's during an election or any other period in time, we use all means that we can within the legislation, respecting the Charter of Rights and Freedoms of individuals involved, investigating all complaints of foreign interference.
She said that twice, so it sounds like you're not doing that.
Thank you.
Investigating all complaints of foreign interference minus the
there are 3 things I might
11 MPs that are corrupt, and
that we continue to collect intelligence,
and the foreign interference registry that we can't get put together. But aside from that,
intelligence to inform things.
We're investigating foreign interference minus the 11 MPs that are in Parliament that have been in there for the last 3 years. We're investigating foreign interference. That's what I mean. That's what these people do. They tell you, "Oh yeah, we're looking into it. We're taking care of you," and then they just fuck you in the ass and collect the paycheck.
To provide
so frustrating
information, whether classified or unclassified, to groups of Canadians to help them be resilient against foreign interference.
You have no fucking power. You
to make
no
sure
fucking...
that any attempts to influence
just
them
vote.
Covertly
just go and vote. Your vote matters.
Successful.
No, it doesn't. Elections are fucking
and I'll just add from public
rigged
safety,
by
maybe 2 pieces that we bring
China.
to the table.
Vote clearly doesn't fucking matter.
Policy making. So some of the legislative initiatives that we've seen in recent years, including C7,
it's okay.
some really important tools
I'm fine.
in there.
I can adapt. No, I don't care who the fuck is leading the country as long as I'm left a fucking
alone. The work
alone.
of our counter foreign interference coordinator in helping to do outreach to local communities is a really
garnish my wages, cause inflation, 50%, 20%, 50%. How about I'm paying all of it?
And so that we're able to better understand how we can help them, whether it's through some of the law enforcement and intelligence tools,
China,
or frankly,
India,
whether
it
it's
doesn't
through
fucking
just
matter.
better dialogue and understanding what are the issues of concern.
Thank you. That is helpful. And it's helpful to know that you're continuing to work, whether it's an election or a non-election. Now, I would imagine that during an election cycle,
it'd be a little bit more
increased.
Yes, scrutinizing increases because of the potential
well.
election
how much can you explain how that happens?
Yeah, how does that work?
As much as you can say.
I think it's very important to note that during elections, that the minister is not involved in any of the decision making. It is in fact the site TF committee, and I think you heard from them earlier this week. They're in charge. It is strictly run by civil servants, and they report directly to Canadians. So there's no reporting mechanism that goes through the regular channels in off-cycle, off-election periods. I think Canadians should be very confident that it is an independent body that truly reports to Canadians as opposed to through elected officials.
Appreciate that. Just looking forward. I wanted to continue, Ms. Geddes, our conversation about groups that might be targeted from other nations. I think you mentioned that we need to reach out to them in the languages of their choice.
Bull fucking shit.
How is that?
What do you mean? They're going to refuse to cooperate with the government if we don't talk their fucking language? English, French, period. Maybe some
we had a brief conversation the other day at this table, but maybe you could expand on that.
Look, I think this is critically important, and I think that that was one of the key lessons that we took from the last election, is that where we had increased transparency and we were using the traditional means of being able to outreach to media, technical outlets in that way, I think we did genuinely feel that where we did our best to try to reach communities directly in a couple of languages, frankly, there's a lot more that we could do. So we have looked to secure.
There's a lot more you can do. How many languages are there, lady? Sum it up.
To be able to enable us to do
There's a lot more we can do.
To be able to reach directly into those
Sounds like
communities.
we need more bureaucrats and more guys getting paid $250,000 to change a sign from English to fucking Arabic.
And I think that we need to kind of continue to think about when we have information we need to share. To
Pay a
make sure
sign,
that they're
fucking
well
maker.
about the threats, that we're using
Put
the
5
tools
languages.
at our
How many
disposal
languages
to
are
be
there?
able to inform
Well, okay,
communities where
put
they are.
all
So
12 languages
a lot
on
of
every
lessons were
sign.
taken on that front,
Make the
and
signs
we'll continue
gigantic.
to do some work to improve our mechanisms.
So they can fucking have all the languages on them. How about that?
We will go to very quick rounds, and for once I'm going to be militant, so we'll do 2 minutes, 2 minutes, then 1 minute. We'll start with Mr. Cooper for 2 minutes, please. Oh, Mr. Culkin, sorry.
Okay, what is going on?
Thank you, Chair. Minister, I asked you the same question twice just moments ago, and I'm surprised at your answer. The question again that I asked you was, after you implement the registry into full effect, will it impede any Canadians from voting? To which you could not say no. I don't know why you can't say no to that question. Why would the implementation of the registry prevent a Canadian citizen from voting?
Sorry, Mr. Calkins, I may have misunderstood your question. My understanding of your question is that this establishment of the registry will, at the end of the day, will.
It's supposed to be a tool to keep foreign interference out of our elections, not to prevent Canadians from participating in the election. Do I have that right?
It is a tool, and my point is it is one of several tools that we have. So that, I think we could agree. It is a tool, and it's an important tool. And, and once established, it will.
So now that we've established that we understand each other, the question that I have for you then is, are you going to implement this the same way that you've done with your gun confiscation program? Because it seems to me, based on the premise of my previous questions, that Beijing says jump and your government says how high. You pulled those MPs off of that trip either out of a direct request from Beijing, or you've done it because you're afraid of Beijing.
Yeah, there's no reason why you pull 2 MPs from a fucking trip unless China was like, take these guys out of here and leave everyone else there. Like, what?
So can you reassure me that Canadians will not be affected or impacted with the implementation of your registry program and their ability to vote and participate in our democracy?
You just can't help yourself, can you, Mr. Calkins?
I'm just following up on your initiatives, Minister. When the camera's on and when people are recording, we just want to hear what you have to say.
Okay, that's 2 minutes. Madame Brière.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being with us and all the other witnesses. Monsieur le Ministre, je vais poser ma question en
Minister,
français.
I'll ask my question in French. You've You said in your introduction that Canadians expect that their government will protect democracy. That includes, of course, our electoral process. You also mentioned the threat
Procédure
of
électorale.
interference is complex. These are delicate and complex mechanisms. What would you say to Canadians to reassure them that the government is doing what it needs to do to ensure that foreign interference is a priority?
Merci, Madame Briard.
Thank you, Ms. Briard, for the question.
I also say that we have one of the most robust electoral systems in the world, one that is truly independent and that
Dominion voting systems,
every element of
truly
democracy,
independent, tied to
ensuring
Chinese
that Canadians can go to the polls
data interpreters
without repercussions, without having any form of intimidation.
Because their vote doesn't matter in the end, so they won't need to be intimidated.
We should be very proud of our democracy and our electoral process.
However they
it
want,
is not perfect, and we've had when we see challenges from foreign actors, from those who will try to undermine our democracy, we need to take action, and that's what our government has done, including with CITF, an independent body that during the elections do their work very effectively, the establishment of the Transparency Commissioner. It is all meant to ensure that Canadians...
What's that, CITF? Site Task Force. Okay, Site TF Task Force. The role of the Site Task Force. Intelligent Threats to Elections Task Force is a whole of government working group that coordinates Government of Canada collection and analysis efforts concerning threats to Canada's federal election processes. It consists of experts from Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS, right? The Communications Security Establishment Canada, CSE, the Global Affairs Canada, Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Each member agency, yeah, RCMP is cool. Okay, that's cool. These sound all legit. Member roles and mandate. Canadian Security Intelligence. CSE, GAC, RCMP. Intelligence threat. Very nice, very good. Election. Has managed to monitor federal elections, site other critical election incident public protocol. Tracking an evolving threat, updating recommendations, counter foreign interference. Against electoral system, foreign interference, seeking further action, foreign interference. Role of the Site Task Force. Okay. Whole of Government Working Group. Okay, but who runs the group? On March 6, 2020, the government can announce several measures to combat foreign interference in a hold, including a registry that they haven't implemented. Those measures include a request to develop a plan within 30 days to address outstanding recommendations to the National Security Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians and assessment of critical election incident public protocol. The protocol, specifically the reports, include National Security Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians Annual Report 2019, such a report into the allegations associated with Prime Minister Trudeau's office visit to India in February 2018, report of the assessment of the 2021 critical election incident public protocol Rosenberg report, report on the assessment of the critical election incident public protocol May 2020, the Judd report. 2018-2023, a total of 26 recommendations were made, including 16 delivered in February 2023 as part of the Rosenberg report. The recommendations have been grouped by the following themes: communicating with Canadians about foreign interference and protecting Canada's democracy, effective governance, strong legal frameworks, risk vulnerabilities, security measures, engagement with partners to enhance awareness, improve resilience to foreign interference. Who are these partners? Who fucking knows? There has been, well, I guess hopefully it's those authorities, the four authorities they showed earlier. They're all right. There's many of these recommendations from the reports, and the government is continuing to work toward implementing others, even though we stopped implementing anything as of 2023. 5 recommendations for 2 NCCOP reports 2018 have been partially addressed. Some action has been taken with respect to every recommendation, and additional options for consideration have been identified. 4 of the 5 recommendations of the Judd report have been implemented in whole or in part. One of the recommendations proposes that the protocol be expanded to apply even when there is no election being held. This has not been implemented because ministers already have the responsibility and the necessary powers to address any concerns about foreign interference that could arise between elections. Ministerial responsibility is a fundamental tenet of Canada's parliamentary democracy. What do you mean, ministerial responsibility? If the ministerial is wholly corrupt, then their responsibility is wholly corrupt. Who fucking vets them? Oh, just depend on the ministers. Ministers already have responsibility and the necessary powers to vet themselves. How does that work? First report received February 23 outlined the 60 recommendations which are in the process of being considered for early implementation. NCCOP and protocol assessment reports. 2017, the government of Canada introduced legislation to create the NCCOP, made up of members of parliament from each party and senators with top secret security clearance to review national security intelligence activities across the government. It was modeled on a similar approaches taken by international partners, has since reviewed and provided recommendations on issues concerning national security. 2019, the NCCOP completed a review of foreign interference in Canada and published their unclassified findings and recommendations, their 2019 annual report. NCCOP also published recommendations relating to foreign interference in their special report of February 2018. As part of the plan to protect Canada's democracy, starting with 2019 election, the Government of Canada established a critical election incident protocol, which is administered by a panel of the most senior federal public servants, the panel, who, working with the National Security Agency, is responsible for locating James Judd, a former director of the Canadian Security Intelligence Agency, undertook the assessment of the protocol covering 2019 federal elections. Morris Rosenberg, former deputy. Jesus Christ. So now I have to look at. Now you have to go. Now we have to go and look into who set up NCCOP, who the panel is of the. By a panel of the most senior federal public services. The panel. The plan to protect Canada's democracy. Okay, we're back here. Is this a different? Okay. Critical election incident public protocol. Infographics on steps being taken by the government if there are interference attempts in this federal election. Ooh, I love infographics. Let's see what their infographic looks like. Okay. Alright, it's kind of a little different, but let's see. Awareness, sharing information, assessing the threat, public announcement. Awareness. The Canada spends 5 years spinning their wheels, and everybody who's in the way gets out of the way. And then after they've disappeared and gone to Bolivia, then we discover that they're fucking selling our information. Digital Citizen Initiative aims to support democracy and social inclusion in Canada by building citizen resilience against online disinformation and building partnerships to support a healthy information ecosystem. Among the initiative funded through DCI's the Digital Citizen Contribution Program, which supports DCI priorities by providing time-limited financial assistance for research and citizen-focused activities. The Digital Citizen Contribution Program supports the priorities of the Digital Citizen Initiative by providing time-limited financial assistance for research and citizen-focused activities. The program aims to support democracy and social inclusion in Canada by enhancing or supporting efforts to counter online disinformation and other online harms and threats. Sixth call for proposals. Funding decisions for the sixth call for proposals are expected to be announced before March 31st, 2026. Additional information about adjusted timelines will be shared with recipients following funding decisions. Note that all applicants will receive a formal response regardless of the funding decision. Who can apply? Following organizations are eligible for funding: a national, provincial, territorial, municipal, indigenous, community or professional organization, society or association which has voluntarily associated itself for a non-for-profit purpose and which has the mandate to represent its membership or community. A not-for-profit. So I could go to a corrupt chief, be like, hey, tell me I can represent the community. Cool, I get a government funding for this, and all I have to do is bullshit the government about, oh, you know, I'm helping my indigenous community that you don't give two fucks about, and the only information you're ever going to get about it is from what I give you, and the corrupt chief that fucking runs it is going to give you any other information. So good luck. Boom, right there. A not-for-profit organization, including non-governmental umbrella organizations, nonprofit corporations, community groups, regulatory bodies, or apprenticeship authorities or associations serving the private sector. A university or educational institution, an individual researcher acting in his or her own personal capacity, a research institution with an established record in relevant fields, intending to undertake work in Canadian context, for-profit Canadian and Canadian-owned institution with a record of developing and delivering programming and performing research or related activities relevant to the goals of Canadian Heritage's Digital Citizen Initiative, provided that the nature of the intent of the activity is non-commercial. Federal institutions, including any department, branch, office, board, agency, commission, corporation, or other entity that receives an annual appropriation from Parliament, are not eligible for funding under the program. Application deadline. There is no date announced yet for the upcoming intake. To be notified for the next call of proposal. Fuck, I'm going to apply. Fuck yeah. I'm doing my own independent research, bro. Contact the Digital Citizen Contribution Program of the Department of Canadian Heritage. Request an application package, including the application guidelines and the general application form. Right. So anybody could just fucking pop on. Well, not any. I mean, it's vetted, but cool. So anybody can, take part in that. That's nice. Report the assessment and critical. Anyway, we still haven't gotten to who the fuck support for a panel. Core support work for the panel was provided by two secretariats of the Privy Council Office of Security Intelligence, SNI, Democratic Institution. Those two secretariats and the panel were supported by a third secretariat, Communications. Two secretariats provided much of the material for the panel in both the pre-written and writ periods. This included a standard reference volume confirming who are the secretariats. Who are these fucking people? Panel operations. We go all the way up to the top, everyone's faceless. How do I know we're not already corrupt? How do we know we're not taking orders from people that are fucking already backwards as fuck? How do you know this whole system isn't fucking, you know what I mean? Cooked. James Judd, he joined the then Department of External Affairs, Foreign Office, in 1973 as a Foreign Service officer. After several assignments at headquarters, posted as Second Secretary. That's good. Appendix 2, Cabinet Directive on Critical Elections. Okay, can we just get the panel, bro? Who's on the panel? Who's the head of SNI? Am I allowed? I don't want to give all this away just in case there's foreign. But I mean, they know this. They're the heads. They're the faces of our security agencies, right? So like, I'm not giving away any sensitive information. What are the conclusions? Conclusions. The panel did not intervene during the 2019 election, but it had been ready to do so if warranted. Intervening was not a test in and of itself of its utility. Non-intervening did in fact reflect a decision or decisions taken. There was no impact on the election as a consequence of any action by the panel. That it did not have to intervene was good news. The protocol was an experiment put in place under tight time constraints. Many of the features of the protocol were invented from whole cloth. Most of them, as a threshold especially, required judgment, knowledge, and context. The types of issues with which they might have to contend do not readily lend themselves to detailed guiding metrics. The panel put into place to implement the protocol was diverse with a range of public service experience. Familiarity with security and intelligence matters varied but was supplemented where needed. The panel is well supported and enjoyed an informed and collegial relationship with its principal partners, like Canada and security agencies. The intelligence and information inputs it received were timely, varied, and considered. On the whole, the implementation of the protocol had been successful. Okay, that's a lot of fucking jargon. Yeah, we did a bunch of stuff, a bunch of things happened, and it worked. We were there, we didn't have to be used, it was good, and it worked. Schedule, October 16, 2020. The current government is in a minority position, sixth in the last 50 years. The lifespan of the past 5 minority governments has ranged between 209 days and just over 2.5 years. If the government wishes, so it's about running its course. If the government wishes to have a capacity to alert Canadians to a significant incident of interference in the next election, the least risk option would be to put the protocol and panel in place for that purpose. In this case, the institutional composition of the panel would remain the same. Similarly, the threshold and consensus provisions of the protocol would remain unchanged. The high threshold would help avoid the panel becoming a frequent intervener in any election, something that was not envisioned when it was established. The consensus provision, but it's going to intervene in elections. Consensus provision for decision making on any potential intervention by the panel adds confidence and credibility to any such. The consensus provision for decision making on any potential intervention by the panel adds confidence and credibility to any such decision. Is the consensus provision for decision making on any potential intervention by the panel. So there's a consensus provision for the panel's decision making. Okay, who is the consensus? One possible revision to the existing protocol could be considered changing the operational time frame for the panel to include both the writ and pre-writ periods. Rationale is twofold. For reasons it is unlikely that any. This is what they're taught. These are the 200,000 fucking bureaucrats they put in, and they're getting nothing. It's just a bunch of fucking. This panel in the same positions they have unparalleled experience now, having participated in the last year's proceedings. The model has already been accepted by opposition parties, has not been publicly or otherwise discredited. The rationale for staying the course with the protocol, amended or not, is based on both simple and cost-benefit analysis and reasonable risk management. Panel membership of a mix of different experience and perspectives would still hold, as well as this panel would be ready sooner than any alternative group given the experienced members from last year. If the protocol and panel were to continue as recommended, that decision should be accompanied by appropriate media strategy. Panel would have to be supported as it was last year by PCO secretariats, security agencies, security intelligence threats, and election task force. A repetition of the collaborative relationship with Elections Canada would also be necessary. The core support with preparing the 2 new members of the panel and then arranging the meetings so the whole panel to ready itself, monitoring and assessing any instances of foreign interference in coming elections in other democracies in the next 2 years should be a particular focus for the core support group. A number of countries previously subjected to foreign interference in the last elections have new elections scheduled in the coming 2 years. This year they are Singapore, Georgia, Lithuania, and the United States. Next year the Netherlands, Singapore, Georgia, Lithuania, and the United States. Next year, the Netherlands and Germany will have elections, while France will have them in 2022. In the event that there is foreign interference in any of those elections, it will be especially important to pay heed to the application of new technologies and operational methodologies by the perpetrators. It will be equally important to take note of the new defensive measures, legal, regulatory, operational, adopted by any of the potential target states. Some might be transferable here. Additionally, the panel support group can also monitor and report on academic and think tank research here and elsewhere that might provide useful insights on election interference issues. Consideration should also be given moving forward now on one related issue, the relationship with political parties represented in the House of Commons that was brought into effect for last year's election should be made operational again. Political parties in other jurisdictions have often been primary targets of the foreign interference, the U.S. with the Democratic National Committee, 15, France with the President's Party in 2017, last year in Australia with 3 parties being the victims of cyber attacks. Party representatives here would benefit from both cybersecurity guidance and access to classified intelligence related to potential interference threats here or the experience of foreign jurisdictions in the coming 2 years. Starting now with both types of collaboration would be reasonable given that their potential vulnerability to interference is not limited to the writ period of an election. It could be subject to attack at any point between now and the election, rightly or wrongly, the arrangement. Okay. The CEIPP will be administered by a group of senior civil servants who will, working with the national security agencies within the agency's existing mandates, be responsible for determining whether the threshold for informing Canadians has been met, either through a single incident or an accumulation of separate incidents. This panel will be comprised of the Clerk of the Privy Council, the National Security Intelligence Advisor to the Prime Minister, the Deputy Minister of Justice, Deputy Attorney General, the Deputy Minister of Public Safety, and the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. Okay, that's... who the fuck are they in? Clerk of the Privy Council, Michael Sabia. Who's this guy? Nathalie Drouin. Oh my god, I have to pee so bad. BRB. BRP. And we're back. And we're back. You know what? Zip. We're sucked into this now. This is what we're doing now instead of gaming. Need the rest of the information. Okay, we get all these people out here. Deputy Minister of Justice, Deputy. Technically, I should know these people. I need this for my own knowledge as well, just as a Canadian. I'm a patriot. I like my authoritarians. I like my authority. We should probably know who the fuck they are. Michael Sabia has been the 26th clerk of the Privy Council since July 7th, 2025. He is appointed by Prime Minister Mark Carney and officially assumed the role following the retirement of John Hannaford, who served in 2023 as a clerk of Privy Council. Sabia is a senior nonpartisan civil servant in the Government of Canada, serving as deputy by his responsibility includes blah 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 blah. Partial expert advice to the Prime Minister and Cabinet. Yes, overseeing the coordinating. Yeah, impartially, I'm sure. Brings 3 decades of experience in both public and private sector. CEO of Hydro-Québec, President, CEO of the Caisse de dépôt de placement et placement du Québec, Canada's Deputy Minister of Finance. Okay, our economy's going to shit. Been going to shit since then. CEO of Bell Canada Enterprises. Okay, Bell. Director of the Monk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy. Monk. Monk School, Global Affairs, Public School is public policy school at the University of Toronto, located at the St. George campus, downtown Toronto. So National Studies officially became the Monk School of Global Affairs Policy following a merger with the School of Public Policy and Governance. School offers 3 master's degree program. God damn. 2-year interdisciplinary professional degree with specializations in global economy and markets, global civil society, and global institutions. Admission is highly selective with 500 600 applicants annually for 80 spots. Students who complete a global internship may pursue dual degrees with institutions like the Rotman School of Management, the University of Toronto Faculty of Law, the international partners including Sciences PO, the Hertie School, London School for Economics. Damn, Masters of Public Policy. Okay, this guy's fucking qualified up the booty hole. The school was lit. The Monk School is home over 40 academic centers. Tesla. School is labeled. This is good. Undesirable organization in Russia. As of September 1st, 2026, Mark Dugan, an economist at Stanford University, will assume the role of director. Russian inquiries. That's good. Undesirable organization. Why did Russia deem them an undesirable organization? Undesirable by Russia. Russia in the spring of 2024. Okay, why did we report it as 2025? This label, part of the broader Kremlin initiative targeting foreign entities, was applied to School of Carleton University, Norman Patterson School of International Affairs, along with the Russian Canadian Democratic Alliance (NGO). The Russian prosecutor, the institution's alleged involvement in a Western campaign to discredit the Russian Federation, cite anti-Russian sentiments, including meetings with leaders from unfriendly countries with anti-Russian orientation. The designation effectively bans 3 organizations from operating in Russia and may subject affiliated individuals to legal consequences, including criminal penalties if they travel to engage with Russian entities. He's in Russia. The move is widely seen as a retaliatory measure in response to Canada's sanctions and support for Ukraine following Russia's invasion. Interesting. That doesn't affect the Monk School at all. That's clearly a very reputable institution. Okay, cool. That guy seems legit. He seems like he gives a shit about the people, especially if he sets up a fucking educational institution. At the same time, he is French. As a Frenchman, you never know. Anyway, seems legit. So look into his past real quick. History. Okay, we're not looking for the council offers. Okay, he doesn't have a Wikipedia. Michael Sabia. Yo, Sabby, you don't got a wiki? He's got a wiki. September 11, 1953 is Canadian businessman, public servant who has been a certain number of senior. Absolutely, yeah, he's very cool, very good. Sabia began his career in the federal public service in the 1980s. Has been served as, having served as public as deputy secretary to the cabinet plans. He has also held senior roles in private sector as CEO of Bell Canada. Yes, yes, yes. CFO of oh, he was CFO of CN. Fucking a, yeah. CNCP's all good shit. A lot of family in those organizations. Sabio is the director of the Monk School of Global Affairs. It's Chevelle at the school, yes, of course. Now Sabio would become clerk of Privy Council. Is it Catherine's Ontario? Oh, nice. He's a fucking Niagara boy. There's a lot of corruption out there, but Sabio is the son of Michael Joseph Sabia, Laura Sabia, and Villela. Both his parents are Italian descent. Hey, bobbity beep, boobity beep. Okay, corruption. He attended Ridley College, St. Catharines. Sabia received undergraduate degrees in the University of Toronto, Mary's graduate degree at Yale University. Right on, right on. His wife, Hillary Patterson, is granddaughter of former Prime Minister Pearson. No fucking way. Right on, bro. You fucking bagged an ex-prime minister's daughter? What a G. He's appointed officer of the Order of Canada. He held a number of senior positions in Canada. Okay, he's got a long. He's fully ingrained into Canada. I mean, the chances that this guy is gonna get fucking corrupted, especially being Italian. I mean, I got a lot of Italian friends. I got Italians that are quite ingrained in Canada. But anyway, seems legit. Yeah, it seems like a really fucking good guy to have on the board. Next. So that was the clerk of Privy Council. Beautiful. National Security Intelligence Advisor to the Prime Minister is Nathalie G. Drouin, current National Security Intelligence Advisor, NSIA, to the Prime Minister of Canada, having assumed the role in January 27, 2024. Also the title of Deputy Clerk of the Privy Council and serves as the Secretary to the National Security. Drouin brings over 3 decades of experience in public service, including senior roles as Deputy Minister of Justice, Deputy Attorney General of Canada. It says you have to look into the work. She's responsible for the coordinating Canada's national security intelligence community, providing strategic advice to the Prime Minister, and overseeing intelligence assessments. Her appointment follows a review announced by the National Security Intelligence Committee of Parliaments, which aims to examine NSIA's role, authorities, and governance framework for the first time in over 2 decades. Oh my God, I'd have to go look into NSICOP too. But anyway, we're looking into the panel right now for the elections that we keep getting referenced. She seems legit. Seems legit. Deputy Minister of Justice, Shaleen Curtis McAuliffe. A little background on the Deputy Minister of Justice. Since 2023, she is the first black woman to lead the Department of Justice in Canada in this capacity. That's cool. She previously served as Associate Deputy Minister of Justice from February 1st, 2021. Was within the department, including Assistant Deputy Minister, Tax Law, fuck off. Serves with Deputy Assistant Minister, Policy Sector, Executive Director, and Senior General Counsel, Health, Legal Services, Agriculture, and Food Inspection and Legal Services. Her career at Justice Canada has focused on regulatory law, international law, with significant contribution to major legislative reforms in cannabis legislation. A little bit of a disaster, but it worked out. Tobacco control, food safety modernization, and public health. Curtis McAuliffe earned a Bachelor of Business Administration from the University of Ottawa, a law degree from Osgoode Hall Law School at York University, and she's a member of the Law Society of Ontario, of course. Okay, we don't need that. Don't look at that. Don't look at that. That's important. We don't need that. I didn't ask for I didn't ask the fucking docs or fucking office. Safety Canada Deputy Minister of Public Safety. Tricia, le Tricia, allô Tricia, c'est quoi ça? Good. Okay. Alright. We got a little background here. Guess is appointed deputy minister. Prior to her appointment, kids held the role held the role of deputy minister of public safety. Deputy minister of the 22nd before joining the department is Giz deputy director policy and strategic partnerships at the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. Oh, sick. Since 2020, as DDP, responsible for key partnerships in the areas of digital But also, again, the CSIS seems to be just not as amazing as what I thought they were. Communications, academic outreach, and stakeholder engagement. Same thing with the Canadian military. You look into the Canadian military, you're like, oh, Avro Arrow, and then nothing. We have an advanced submarine. That's it, one sub. She also supported the Director and Minister of Public Safety and their accountability for overall operational activities of the service. CSIS is accountable, transparent, and ashamed to Government Canada. CSIS 2014, Director of General Policy. Yeah, she got fucking stupid experience. Previously, she was in Armed Forces, Associate Director of Staff, Strategic Director of Staff. Privy Council, I mean, our general is a postmenopausal woman, no offense. I'm sure she's done a lot of good. There's a lot of female soldiers that are amazing, but I'm just, war times, I don't know if that's probably the best idea. Hot flashes and all, but anyway, cool. That's fine. Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs. David Morisson. Why does that sound familiar? Is that the one that's just speaking now? Is that the CSIS director? No. Deputy Minister. Okay, that's back. That's pretty much what we wanted. Deputy Minister for Forest Affairs. This is obviously AI generated, so I mean, take it with a grain of salt. Senior civil servants, also the day-to-day manager of Global Affairs Canada, sort of Ministry of Affairs, oversees the department's operation, council, producer, associate deputy minister of foreign affairs, deputy minister internationally, had roles including personal representative of the prime minister for the G7 summit. I guess it's cool. If you really want to know their intentions, you have to go back to like their fucking learning days. They go to those fucking conventions, the future leaders conventions. Anyway, they all seem legit though. It's a good panel. I'm not gonna lie. That's a good draft pick. As far as I could tell, on the whole, looks fucking legit as fuck. The G7 rapid response mechanism. And that's just the panel, though. That's just the panel that scrutinizes the elections if ever they were to be implemented. Anyway, and they're only implemented during elections. And okay, so we don't really have to worry about any of that shit. Transcona. I mean, it's good to know that we're in pretty decent hands.
Can not just be safe, but also feel safe.
Thank you so much. We'll turn to Madame Nomada for 1 minute, please.
They really have to cut the bureaucracy. Like, I have to do fucking 10 hours of research just to fucking figure out who runs what.
Vehicles that come to Canada can't transmit sensitive information, but this is a basic function of modern cars if we want them to work. Was the Prime Minister well briefed on this security issue before reaching the agreement with China on important basic function?
Thank you so much. We'll turn to Madame Nomada for 1 minute, please.
Minister, you mentioned that you are paying attention so that vehicles that come to Canada can't transmit sensitive information, but this is a basic function of modern cars if we want them to work. Was the Prime Minister well briefed on this security issue before reaching the agreement with China on importing vehicles?
Yeah, okay, yeah, it's a perfect
the Prime
question.
Minister
That's exactly
is quite
what...
well briefed on many issues, including on issues around trade. What I think you will find, especially with vehicles, is that
the issue isn't around. Okay,
all vehicles coming in to Canada will have safeguards in place where our information will be protected, and that is, I think, very important principle.
But you're not going to elaborate or tell us how, even though this lady just said the very basic function of those cars requires it to transmit and receive information that could compromise our shit. But okay. How far back are we going here? We were at. Let's go with the latest unlimited power exemption clause. Wonderful. This is what we're talking about: the omnibus bills, the bills that allow them to just fucking do whatever the fuck they want.
I actually get to ask some questions. My first question to you, though, is why do you need the power to exempt any person or corporation from almost any federal law except for the criminal code to do your job?
Why
Don't
do you
necessarily.
need
It's probably
license to kill
a
to do
useful
your
tool to
job,
have.
essentially?
I think those clauses that do find their way into legislation are often interpreted with a standard of reasonableness. But to be quite clear, we don't necessarily need them, but they are a useful tool to have.
Okay, so you don't need it. Would you be open to removing it then from this bill?
From C-15?
Yep.
No.
Why not?
Well, it's not my job to remove it, but it's a useful tool to have in the context, particularly.
It's not your job to remove it?
Rapid fashion.
Well, the concern is that you are able to make decisions on your own based on your prerogative behind closed doors with no accountability to Parliament or to Canadians. And so in your remarks you talked about protecting what makes Canada unique, being a democracy. That this clause is undemocratic, so why would you like to keep it?
Sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Why would you like to keep the clause if it is undemocratic? You would have you can
have
make
immunity from laws. You could do anything. A company and entity can get immunity to law.
Law, except for the criminal code on your own.
Except for the criminal code.
No public disclosure behind closed doors.
No public disclosure. Yeah.
Well, like I said,
dangerous.
Not an indispensable tool. It's a helpful tool to have. These clauses
it's not an
are
indispensable
often
tool.
interpreted
Yeah,
by
we get it.
courts
We get it.
on
You
a
want
standard
it. You
of
want
reasonableness
it.
in the context. And in the context that we are seeing with things moving very rapidly, I think it is important for us to be able to have some nimbleness.
Nimbleness?
But if there is no accountability to the public, and you are
being
not
nimble and having
actually,
zero accountability is two different things.
You're not. You don't have to disclose what
you're doing.
Conflict
Tell
of
anyone
Interest
and the public what you're doing with their money,
or
what you're
like
doing.
That,
yeah, who's
then I don't
you're
think
working
that's
with.
in the best interest of.
Yeah, it's
the
not
country.
in the best interest of the. Yeah, it's not.
First, this is a bill on which members will be asked to vote. It is also one where
people are voting on it. Okay,
my
people are
belief
voting
is
on it. So
to be able to use that tool is one that should be used sparingly, but again, useful to have in the context.
Useful to have for what though?
But why should
Immunity
one
to
minister,
laws,
individual minister,
aside from criminal law,
be allowed to bypass 150 years of Canadian law
to put
and
through
exempt
whatever
a person or company of their choosing?
Look, that may be your view, but I don't think that is what's happening.
Well, that's how it's written.
It's 100%.
It doesn't say.
The government could say, "Oh, this company helped us out a lot." So
years of law.
It says from any federal law except the criminal code.
From any federal law.
There's no mention of years or.
It's any federal law.
This guy's going into semantics now.
It's
What a
any
fucking
federal law that has been
expert
passed
fucking
over
rat.
the last 150
Lady, he's making
years.
you fucking run in circles.
I'm not going
understand.
to parse this out with you.
So just to be clear, you don't need it to
What a
do
fucking
your job,
asshole.
but you want to keep it nonetheless.
I think it's helpful to have.
What a
Do you see
fucking
the
rat.
potential of abuse, though, in that companies
Jesus
or people
Christ.
will have to lobby you personally and not care about the law
Can you answer
itself?
the fucking
No one's
question,
asking me to overturn
dickhead?
any laws.
You would
Let's
have
ask you
the
to-
ability to.
To overturn law, any law that is not part of the
In
criminal
some
code.
context, perhaps, but again, this is something that would have to be used very judiciously.
How
So you've been in
could
some
you
context you will be
possibly
able to overturn
think
any
that
law that
this
isn't
would
criminal.
not undermine the trust in our democracy then?
Yeah. How does this not
I
undermine
think
the trust in our
Canadians
democracy?
expect us to act reasonably. I think Canadians expect us to be judicious in our decision making. Passing a
Minus the
law
fact that you're
like
gonna be immune
C-15,
to
which all
judicial
members will have the
repercussions, but-
opportunity to vote on, is something that is inherently accountable in and of itself.
Well, it has this particular clause that is very problematic. It is all over the news. I have a letter with 43 organizations asking for you to strike it because of the potential of abuse, but you still want to keep it.
I think I've answered that question about 3 times now.
I just don't find it reasonable for you to have the powers of a king, essentially.
Certainly don't have the powers of a king.
If you are allowed to exempt any entity from any federal law, it is like the powers of a king.
Yeah.
Is that a statement or a
Exempt
question?
any entity. Oh
Well,
god, this
it's
guy's
a
a
fact.
fucking
Thank you, Ms.
expert.
Bobina. That concludes the time for
Well
this
done,
round.
bro. You did good. Good job, you liberal fucking rat. And bad job on the conservative. She should have had her questions properly.
Before I get this started today, I really wanted to highlight something that I came across on social media from our former Heritage Minister and Environment Minister, Deputy PM of Canada, the Honourable Sheila Copps. She wrote actually that there's not young female conservatives here. Actually, I'll quote her. She said, "Can't figure out why virtually no young women are visible at the Conservative Convention in Calgary. So I'm just wondering, ladies, if you want to stand up, quickly make yourself known, because we do exist." I don't know, Sheila. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of us. Don't worry, I have people in the crowd doing that for me. I'm Jasmine Lane. Thank you so much, of course, for being here. You know, I often have people ask me, what is your story? And why is it that you got involved in politics? And while it certainly is not the happiest of stories, it's one I've spoken of many times, the truth is that it was grief. It was life-altering, personality-changing grief. And in my darkest moments, that was where, somehow through the grace of God, grief was turned into purpose. Talking about politics at that point in time in my life stopped being abstract, it stopped being risky, because it really did become a moral obligation. Because in some way, shape, or form, politics affects each and every one of us. It shapes our futures, it determines our opportunity, it structures our lives. And it really does determine all the things that we have access to as citizens in a nation. And right now, people can feel that something has gone very wrong. And they don't feel that because the media told them. They don't feel that because a politician explained it well, but because real life has become harder. Real life has become more expensive and more constrained, and the stories that we are told about why that do not match real life. For years, people have been told that if you are struggling, it's because you just need to work harder. Or, of course, one of my personal favorites, it's a global phenomenon. If you're angry, it's because you're misinformed. And if you question the direction and data of this government and how conflicting all of that is, it must be because you're hateful, you're fearful, or you're just unintelligent, right? And this gaslighting, it doesn't just make people doubt facts, it makes them doubt themselves. It's designed that way. It's designed to isolate you, to make you feel ashamed, to make you self-censor, and to make you believe that you are alone. And once you believe all of those things, that's when you stop talking about it. But I want you to take a moment to look around this room. You are not alone. We are witnessing right now, it's not left versus right. It's actually just right versus wrong. And that is something that the Conservative Party of Canada and Pierre Poilievre, under his leadership, they have been signaling. They've been ahead of the curve to this for so long. It's we the people versus a ruling class that no longer lives under the consequences of the policies they impose. It's the technocrats and the credentialed elites versus every other person, each and every one of us expected to quietly absorb the cost. They speak in abstractions, but you live in reality. They talk about transitions, and you deal with the price tag and the consequences of their failure. But there is something that has become so incredibly clear. They are afraid. And they're not afraid of anger, certainly. They're not afraid of protests. In fact, those may actually work in their favor from time to time. And they're definitely not afraid of slogans, especially three-word slogans, build, baby, build. Anybody? They're really afraid of truth spoken plainly. You know, in Mark Carney's book, Values, which I highly recommend everybody read, and if you don't want to support him,
fuck is this? Why am I going? Where are we going?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thank you for joining us, Minister. I think this is the first time I actually get to ask some questions. My first question to you, though, is
why does it open my
computer
shit when I'm trying to
corporation from almost any federal law except for the criminal code to do your job?
Link.
Don't necessarily. It's probably a useful tool to have.
Why can't I go to this link? What the fuck? Okay. Am I pushing Am I pushing keys I shouldn't be pushing? My computer fucking cooked.
Thank you for joining us, Minister. I think this is the first time I actually get to ask some questions. My first question to you, though, is why do you need the power to exempt any person or corporation from almost any federal law except for the criminal code to do your job?
Don't necessarily. It's probably a useful tool to have. I think those clauses that do find their way into legislation are often interpreted with a standard of reasonableness, but to be quite clear, we don't necessarily need them, but they're a useful tool to have.
Okay, so you don't need it. Would you be open to?
It brings me a little cooked right there. Try that one more time. Is that the new episode? What? God damn. Opening my profile. I shouldn't have a fucking Brave profile. That's the thing, though.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank our witnesses for being here today to discuss this important topic. And both of you guys highlighted on the fact that we are in a cost of living crisis, and I know being a mom to young kids, I talk to parents all the time that are struggling. They're struggling to be able to provide the food that they were able to provide just last year. And so programs like what both of you guys have been delivering for many years has been so positive. But one of the pieces when I first started looking into this that I decided to reach out to was to school principals to see what kind of administrative burden this was putting on them. And many of them actually shared that there was an enormous amount of administrative burden. And I was just wondering if you could dictate to us, and perhaps we could start with Ms. Berry and go to you, Ms. Webb. What kind of administrative burden has this assistance added to your program?
On our side at Breakfast Club of Canada, we are not involved with the deployment of the federal investment within all provinces and territories. But as far as we understand, there is reporting and data that is needed for the federal government and for provinces and territories relating to the outcomes that they have committed to deliver. Of course, if some strong mechanism to coordinate and monitor the results would be in place, it would help all sectors to align and streamline the reporting.
Well, and I know in reading through your guys' reports that you've released, you've been able to quantify what the costs are in Quebec, but you can't actually quantify what the costs are in other provinces and territories because there is no streamlined system of data collection. And so I know in the school administrators I've talked to, they already have a lot on their plate. And the federal government has given them this, and they know that it is important. They know that it is important to make sure that kids are fed and that they do better in school when they are fed, but they don't have the means to be able to actually implement the program as well as possible because they don't have the experience as an organization like either of you guys do in actually making sure kids get fed. So I guess one question I have is, how many kids do you feed a year through your breakfast club, Ms. Berry?
The Breakfast Club of Canada, in collaboration with many school districts and regional organizations, we're reaching over 800,000 students currently. And we know that in some provinces...
And how much money does that... So you feed over 800,000 kids a year.
On a daily basis.
On a daily basis. And how much money is that?
On a daily basis, yeah. Even on the weekends when they're not in school?
A yearly budget of over 50 million.
50? Yeah. So this federal government is wanting to feed 400,000 kids with 216 million annually. Do you think you could feed more kids better than that?
Actually, I think all stakeholders are needed, and we were really happy 2 years ago that finally the federal government is part of the solution. We were the only G7 country without a national school food program. So the federal investment is needed. The way that is their impact is associated with that 400,000 students is a way that we can look at it, but we can look at universal reach because that's the vision of the National School Food Policy.
I appreciate that. Who is responsible in Canada for education primarily?
Of course, you know that this is provinces and territories.
Yeah.
So
and
that's why we need to build on their existing programming.
And I think this is one of the pieces where I have concerns. I came from a provincial background, and I think that my province, I know for a fact my province has had a school food program for many, many years, and they have been working collaboratively, and they've actually worked fairly collaboratively with the federal government in trying to roll this out. But I know other provinces didn't necessarily have that framework in place, and have been put into a bit of a challenge space. So I guess over to you, Ms. Webb. What kind of administrative burden have you guys heard of from other partners when it comes to this new national school food program that the government rolled out?
Yeah, as Ms. Berry spoke to, there are sorry, my thought just went away. But in terms of, we haven't heard from any about the administrative burdens. My understanding is the provincial provinces and territories are responsible for enhancing the programs that they already have. And so for them, I think the new addition is the reporting requirements from the federal government. And so I can see how that will add certainly to the administrative burden. Hopefully, though, as Ms. Berry spoke to, we can work towards, we can see this as growing pains and things that we can improve on to streamline, to coordinate that monitoring and really figure out some good systems, including even what are we all monitoring together, like some of those common indicators that we can do, as well as some of my colleagues at the University of Saskatchewan have been developing some tools that can be used to support some of that monitoring. And so I think as all these tools and platforms are developed, we can...
Could you speak a little bit to that? Because I have read quite a bit about what the University of Saskatchewan's doing, and I think it's absolutely spectacular, and perhaps you could share a little bit about that amazing prairie and ingenuity.
Yeah, absolutely. They've received some...
Quick answer, your time is up. Let's head upstairs. Quick response.
Oh, yeah, just some tools to support monitoring and evaluation, as well as how programs can be run, different models. But the tools are really, you know, if you're looking to monitor this, here are some good questions, and we can certainly send information to anyone who's interested.
Thank you, Ms. Goodrich.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the witnesses. I want to probe this issue of the federal government's involvement in these programs. I understand why people involved in delivering these programs would love to see more money from the federal government, but I'm talking specifically about kind of administrative involvement in the programs. The federal government is not involved in the delivery of education. They're not involved in decisions about running schools, laying out schools, the kind of curriculum. And I could see why people might want to make the case for saying increase transfers to provincial governments, to school boards for programs that delivered. I could see why people involved in this kind of work would want to make that argument. But I don't really understand why it would be desirable to have the federal government involved in specifically the administration of these kinds of programs. Things like monitoring, evaluation, decision-making. Aren't these the sorts of things that are best left to decision-making at the local level?
That since we were established over the past 10 years, we've been speaking to this as a health intervention for kids that takes place in the school setting, because we know that the health benefits are so rich for physical and mental health for our children and youth. And in terms of making sure that programs are monitored, it is so valuable to understand what the impacts of these programs are to be able to grow them. And then in terms of how...
I'm sorry, I'll give you the floor back,
yeah?
but just, I mean, it happens in an education setting. You've described it as a health intervention.
Yeah.
But even health interventions are administered at the provincial level typically. It's not obvious to me why, as an education or a health intervention or both, the federal government directing aspects of implementation makes any sense when you have school boards that are present, that are engaged in activities that are designed to benefit the health as well as the education of students. These programs could be supported through an increase to provincial transfers in general. Why specifically does having public servants in Ottawa involved in reviewing, directing, on top of what's happening at other levels, how does that make the system any better?
Yeah, my understanding is that the federal money is given to provinces and territories to use to implement and supplement their own programs, and that it can be used in a way that they deem best. And so that the big question about civil servants in Ottawa, my understanding is that the monitoring and evaluation is really to see the impact from the federal perspective. But yeah, it is, I think, was designed so that the provinces and territories could do whatever seemed most relevant to their context and situation.
Okay, so is the program just an increase in transfer to the provinces, or does it involve hiring additional people here in Ottawa to make decisions about what interventions should and should not be supported?
That question shouldn't be for us, I'm sorry, but I think it should be...
Well, I'm just asking how the program works from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I can share my understanding is that the money is mostly transferred to provinces and territories, and I don't know about hires within the federal
Do you think it would
here.
be better if it was just all transferred to the provinces and territories? Like zero money spent on hiring new public servants and all of the money spent on transfers to the people who are already doing it on the front lines. Would that be a better system?
I think what's important to remind ourselves is that we believe that this is a multidimensional program by nature, and we need all sectors and all stakeholders to be much more involved, because you are right, there is clearly...
Okay, sorry, I am just running out of time, and I will give it back to you, but I guess I still don't really understand what having an additional group of public servants in Ottawa reviewing and sending direction, suggestions to people in my riding who are already delivering these programs. Like, how in the world does that improve the effectiveness?
What we think would improve the efficiency is to gather the stakeholders and ensure that there is some mechanism in place to monitor and really support efficient and
gather people who have money in your program.
And we believe that civil society
really worried about the people who have money in your program.
So why doesn't civil society can do it then? But this is a question about the federal government's involvement. Right. Okay, thank you.
What the fuck is shooting at me? What the hell? Oh, goddamn.
Chair, welcome, Dr. Houston. Dr. Houston, how many foreign doctors did the University of Toronto train last year through the visa trainee program?
So last year, in total, we had 459 physicians in this program.
Okay.
In the residency program.
Thank you.
And the fellowship program. So total residency and fellowship.
How many return to their home country after training?
They are all expected to return to their home country.
all
It is
expected?
part of the
Okay, but how
contract
many
that we
did?
have with their sponsor that the trainee also signs on to.
How many visa trainees completed their training at the University of Toronto last year?
I don't have that exact number, but I can provide it to you because they range from PGY 1s to PGY 7s. We accept between 2 and 4 residents into family medicine, and they return after 2 years. Those in the Royal College specialty and subspecialties train for a variable number of years depending on the residency program.
So would, like, you have a rough idea, like 1,000, 500?
Oh, no, not that large. So if we have 459 in the program, the maximum we could send out in any given year would be 459.
Okay, if you could forward that information, that'd be
I will
great.
certainly give you the information as to how many graduated last year.
Okay, and then how
So we
many
could tell
Canadian
how many
medical
went
students
home
graduated
after.
from the University of Toronto last year?
So the current cohort is 303 students that came in, and last year I believe we graduated 259 students. And the reason for the discrepancy is that we have expanded our medical school numbers, our cohort, in the last years due to increased funding.
Yep, number, thank you so much. How much does a single Saudi-sponsored visa trainee pay to the University of Toronto per year of training?
The trainee does not pay the University of Toronto any dollars. The sponsor pays us $100,000. They also provide the salary and the cost of living for accommodations for the trainee.
So the sponsor would be the Saudi Arabian government?
It's either the government or there are individual institutions in Saudi Arabia or the other 5 Middle Eastern countries that send these funded trainees.
And you have any idea how much the total amount is?
The total amount that comes into the University of Toronto? Well, our usual number is between 450 and 500 trainees per year. So if you do the math, that's between $45 and $50 million.
Wow.
It is a significant amount of money that provides funding for our education and research programs.
So $100,000 per student
per year.
Per year. And then, what was those numbers again? 400?
We would have, as I told you, so last year we had 459, and we usually have between 450 and 500 of these learners.
Does the money that the University of Toronto collects from foreign-funded visa trainees go into the faculty's general revenue? Yes or no?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I'm happy to expand on that.
Yep.
So the money first comes into the postgraduate medical education office.
How much?
All of the money.
Percentage?
All of the money initially comes into the postgraduate medical education program. We then determine how much money is needed to support the education programs, both centrally in the postgraduate medical education office and across the medical education program centrally. And then we distribute the money to the departments, and subsequent to that, we send whatever money is still remaining to the dean's office for use to support other education and research activities.
So it goes into general revenue first, and then you decide where it's going to go.
It comes to the
after that.
postgraduate medical education office first.
Which is considered general revenue.
For the postgraduate medical education office.
Okay, and you can table all that information?
I am happy to provide you with that information.
Okay. Is there anything requiring the University of Toronto to use foreign visa trainee funding to expand medical training for Canadians?
No.
No?
No. No. The funding for the expansion of programs for Canadians is provided from the Ministry of Health or MCures. It doesn't go directly to the expansion of the programs. It supports all of the programs.
So it goes into general revenues, and you decide where it goes, and it doesn't go back into funding programs?
It supports all of the programs, not just specifically the expansion programs.
So
it is also used, so I'll give you an example. It is also used to support our Office of Learner Affairs.
Who would, like, it could go into artwork for the walls. Like, it could go into anything into the university.
We take responsibility for the use of the funds, and I would be happy to provide you with what the expenses
that would be very good.
Within education.
If you could table with the committee what fund visa trainee revenues,
30
and where they're
seconds.
deposited, that'd be great. How much money in total did the University of Toronto receive last year from foreign governments to train visa trainee doctors?
Brother out.
Amount of dollars that I just explained to you, the $45 million approximately for the 459 trainees we had last year.
Before accepting the money from foreign governments, do you evaluate that country's human rights record?
We do not. In the Postgraduate Medical Education Office, that is not our role.
Thank you, Chair.
Dr. Houston, do you know how much money came to postgraduate medical education at the University of Toronto, specifically from Saudi Arabian sources last year?
Well, if we say that Saudi Arabia represents approximately 40% of the learners, and we got $45 million, then I would say it would be $18 million.
Well done. Fast math. Thank you. Does the University of Toronto receive, particularly the Emory School of Medicine, receive other sources of funding from Saudi Arabia other than that, like, let's say in terms of donations or other partnership, let's say not directly associated with visa trainees?
Not to the best of my knowledge.
Okay. You mentioned this episode in 2018. I was on a medical faculty at that time. I remember it very well. Just to say it into the record again, Chrystia Freeland was then the Foreign Affairs Minister. She criticized the Saudi government. They were putting women in prison because they had the temerity to advocate for their right to drive. And from my recollections, medical faculties
kill this thing any fucking day now.
Global Affairs Canada and Chrystia Freeland, who happens to be the member of Parliament, I believe, for most of the University of Toronto Medical School, to temper her criticism, let's say. Are you aware that officials at the University of Toronto lobbied Global Affairs Canada or the Minister of Foreign Affairs to temper her criticism of Saudi Arabia in order to protect this funding?
I am not aware of that occurring.
Okay. We've spoken a lot about the difference between, let's say, funding and capacity. It seems to me pretty obvious that if the University of Toronto currently has the capacity to train Saudis, but the funding is coming from Saudi Arabia, if some other source were to provide that funding and Saudi Arabians were, or the government of Saudi Arabia was not giving those residency spots, like if that funding was restored from some other source, the University of Toronto could, for instance, train Canadian IMGs who want to come back home?
We have the capacity at this time and have put forward to the provincial government a further expansion plan for our residency program. So the short answer is yes, we could further expand the number of residents that we graduate in any given year.
And then an association who represents these Canadian graduates from Ireland, or Irish, Australian, UK, American, Caribbean schools said that often these folks will drum up their own funding, but this funding is not accepted by faculties of medicine. Does your faculty have a policy about this? So if I have an Irish medical degree and my hometown of St. Thomas, Ontario says they will fund my residency, would you accept those funds the way you accept funds from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia?
That is not allowed by the provincial government. The provincial government, for both the MD program and the postgraduate medical education programs, sets the total number of domestic spots available.
I see. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is a brutally repressive dictatorship. So shortly after this episode in 2018, they lured a Washington Post journalist into their Turkish consulate. They dismembered him with a bone saw. This repression continues to this day. They executed somebody for tweets critical of the government this past summer. Do you have any concern that the Temerity medical faculty is compromised by receiving money from this sort of source? Do you think that the faculty, for instance, is able to condemn these practices in Saudi Arabia, or would that risk their funding?
It is not my role. I do not take a role in the political arena. I do take a role in ensuring that we support the education of these trainees that come to us.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second there. So the Temerity Faculty of Medicine does not have a view as to whether women should be allowed to drive?
May I say that may be off the topic about their view on whether women should be allowed to drive?
Well, I think it's directly on
go
topic.
ahead. 1 minute left.
The Temerity Faculty of Medicine would not put forward a view on that.
Okay, so Women's College Hospital is part of the Temerity Faculty of Medicine. Like, it doesn't view itself as a feminist institution that promotes equal rights for women both in Canada and abroad.
Women's College is one of the Tasman hospitals.
And it doesn't take a view about women's rights globally?
I have not recently reviewed any of their whatever they have put out about
Okay, I have
this.
one last question. We received an email from a member of the University of Toronto Medical
16
Faculty
seconds.
who wishes to remain anonymous because of fear of reprisals from the administration. He says the impression of rank-and-file faculty is that the Saudi money is used to prop up the growing administrative structure and roles of the faculty rather than improving the training quality and experience of Canadian learners. Is there a reason you can think of why he would want to remain anonymous for fear of reprisal?
Possible.
I cannot.
He just answered your own question, bro.
Chair. The University of Toronto's mission statement
Remain anonymous
reads,
for fear of
quote,
reprisal.
"The University
Why would he want
of
to
Toronto is
remain anonymous for
dedicated
fear
to
of
fostering
reprisal?
an academic community in which the learning
So
and
that he can
scholarship
stay
of
anonymous
every
for fear
member
of
may
reprisal?
flourish,
I don't know.
with vigilant protection for individual human rights and a resolute commitment to the principles of equal opportunity, equity, and justice." Do you think the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia shares these values?
On that.
I'm sorry?
I haven't looked at the mission statement of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
No, that's your university mission statement.
I
that just
understand
read.
that,
Yeah.
and I'm very supportive of our mission statement.
Okay.
And our mission, as part of our mission, we work with multiple partners around the globe.
Okay. Will you condemn the human rights abuses committed by the countries you've received funding for? Yes or no?
I choose not to respond.
All right. I will take that answer. Do you
I
personally...
don't see that is something that I need to answer to.
How?
I want
Take
you to
money
know
from
that
people
you've
who
really given us
murder
great
and
answers.
torture
We've
other
had a
people
whole
across
bunch of witnesses, and I really appreciate the information you've been giving us. What I am trying to determine
Cool, you run a
is
university, you take money
if
from
a
fucking
Saudi
murderers.
Arabian person can take that spot, what does it take for us to get an IMG in that same spot? Is it $100,000?
No, it's provincial funding.
I realize that. But
So it's
when
not
we
the
see this budget,
$100,000?
that has just been set out, how many extra spots are we going to create across Canada? And I'm thinking, well, 97 million could possibly create 1,000 more medical special graduates if we use the money correctly. So some of my questions are trying to get to that answer. Are we using this money correctly? And I'll ask you this question. You'd mentioned that you have all these spots. Now, I'm going to call the Saudi ones extras, and we're going to call the ones that you currently have medical students for as domestic spots.
Correct. So I call them domestic and supernumerary.
How can we increase those domestic spots? What type of dollar figure do we need to have? And I understand you want it to be provincial, but if you could just indicate to me a dollar figure per year per student for a resident on a 5-year program, not family medicine, a specialist. Is it 100,000? Is it 50,000? Is there a number?
Yes, there is a number. So let's start with medical school, because you can't have a resident unless you put a student through medical school. So it costs approximately $80,000 a year to put
a year for medical school. You're going to medical school for 5 years. Okay, sorry.
One student, 1 year.
Close to $500,000
at the University of Toronto. And the reason why the tuition for the postgraduate medical education programs is $100,000 for the Middle Eastern countries is because that's approximately the cost to support that residency position.
Thank you. Now, other universities that I have spoken with have received donations.
Oh, no.
You'd indicated that the University of Toronto has not received any donations towards any expansions or anything from the Saudi government, just $100,000 per student. There's been no extra kindness.
I said to the best of my knowledge, I was not aware of any other donations from the Saudis to the Temerity Faculty of Medicine. And these are not donations, this is tuition that they pay.
Oh, shit,
Thank you. These IMGs that we have in Ireland, I feel really bad for. Now, I'm from Alberta. We've got 44 students that want to come back to Alberta and do the CARMS match. They're not having any success. They're finding difficulty.
Oh, I can actually blow that out.
The Alberta government is now looking at creating spaces, and I guess they will associate a number to increase those IMGs.
I had to actually jump
what
off
would it
while
take
it was
for
falling.
47 seconds?
Your university to increase spots?
It would take first the province saying that they would support the expansion, and then the funding from the province for those spots.
Thank you.
30 seconds?
Do you have any concerns about the Canadian university's dependence on the visa trainees from Saudi Arabia, a theocratic monarchy alleged to have committed human rights violations, including state-sanctioned murders, oppression of women, minorities, and curbing freedoms daily?
The University of Toronto trains those physicians to take the values of the Canadian healthcare system and our university back to improve their healthcare system.
Thank
what
you,
about
Chair,
our healthcare
through
system?
the chair. My first questions are for Dr. Irwin. Thank you for coming in today. Really informative and also disturbing in a lot of ways. So, Dr. Irwin, the pediatric unit at the Kelowna Hospital in my region was forced to close for several months amid a doctor shortage. While it has since reopened, I don't believe it's open to full capacity at this point. I'd like to ask, how common is it for a pediatric health care to be suddenly unavailable to a community the size of Kelowna, over 200,000 or nearly 200,000, I think it is, but also it services the entire interior of BC, basically. It does for pediatrics. How common is that?
I think probably like many specialties, in pediatrics the numbers are often fewer than they would be to serve a similar size population of adult caregivers or adult specialists. And I don't know the exact numbers in your writing, but I would suspect that the total number of physicians available at that hospital to provide pediatric services may have been under some strain, and perhaps it got to a critical number where there were not enough doctors to provide possibly safe health care. I don't know the details.
Is that common? Is that a common thing to happen throughout the country?
I think it can be. I can give you some examples from Ontario or from some of the groups that I'm more aware of.
So
I'll give you a very different example. I'm a pediatric oncologist, so I care for children with cancer.
Thank you.
We in Ontario in Toronto provide bone marrow transplants for children essentially east of Ottawa, from Ottawa and eastward. We only have 5 physicians, and that took a lot of work to recruit them to provide bone marrow transplants.
Okay. So
if any of those physicians leave, we will not be able to do what we can do, and if more than 2 left, we may have to we would potentially have to close the program.
And have you closed then?
We have not needed to, but 4 out of those 5 are internationally trained physicians. We were not able to identify Canadians.
So what risks in care are possible to our children if a hospital lacks a pediatric unit? So what if someone says to me, oh, well, they'll just go to another unit? Tell me what the risks are.
That's a really important question. As I alluded to, we are not the same. We train very differently in pediatrics. We do 4 years of training after medical school graduation in pediatrics, and then our subspecialties. So in oncology, that's another 3 years of hematology and oncology. We take care of different conditions, whether that be in kidney, heart, etc. And so physicians would not have the same expertise.
So do you predict that at some point there's going to be pediatric units closing permanently? And would you say that we may come up with an excuse, or administration might come up with an excuse like, well, it'll be covered in other areas, but of course you don't believe that, and it doesn't sound like it's possible.
I do not believe that would be safe and high-quality care for our children.
But you see that coming down the road?
I see it being a risk, especially when we have a strained workforce. There are so again, there's multiple specialties. There's general pediatrics, which is probably a big part of the population you're speaking about, but there's also many specialties under strain. We know that cardiologists who take care of our youngest children, pediatric cardiologists, more than half of our current practicing across the country are over 50, and over 20% are over 60. Okay. So that tells you something about that workforce.
It's a very dangerous situation. Is pediatric medicine that's taught in schools in Australia, America, or the United Kingdom, let's say, is it comparable to medicine that's taught in Canadian medical schools, and so would be interchangeable in that we could receive doctors from those countries, and they should be able to fit right in with our pediatric requirements.
I believe so. Dr. McPherson spoke about that. Yes. I am also, you may have seen in my biography, I am a Harvard-trained physician. I did my medical school at Harvard. I did my residency at Boston Children's and Dana-Farber.
Okay, then it's very...
I believe it is incredibly similar, and we have standards that we follow, and
Of course you do.
A lot of people went to Harvard.
I think
sure.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.
Dr. McPherson, it sounds as if, thank you for your opening statements. You said Canada licensing is burdensome, disorganized, and inconsistent. That's pretty clear what you feel about it and what we've been hearing from other witnesses. It sounds to me like Americans want to leave, want to work here, but would you say that Canada is getting a bad reputation in the United States or throughout the world, possibly? That after a while, we're going to get less and less people actually wanting to even try to make the leap to come to Canada, which we need so badly. We need those doctors so badly.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that Canada is getting a bad reputation. I think everyone understands that bureaucracy comes with paperwork and you know.
But you said Canada has a lot more than you.
32 seconds.
But there certainly is frustration with the process, and there's a very large online community of U.S. physicians that explore the options of practicing abroad.
One more quick question. Sorry, we only have a few seconds. Sorry to interrupt you. So British Columbia instituted a campaign to try to recruit more U.S. physicians, but do you know any of your colleagues who are looking to move to British Columbia? Is that working? Because you originally were going to move there, right? And is it working, do you feel?
Yeah, I actually have a couple of colleagues who have moved to British Columbia
and
this
are they
year.
actually working?
Thank you. The time is up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Through the chair, Dr. Irwin, how many pediatric spots are there across Canada? It's under 10, is it?
So that's part of our initiative where we collected the data. So if we look at provincially funded, so publicly funded spots, on average there's around 65 a year for the subspecialties, and a larger number, I think I'll have to get you the exact number, but it's at least double that number for general pediatrics. So first you must do general pediatrics for 4 years, and then the subspecialties. So that 65 is for that latter part of training.
Now, I'm going to ask this about the special extra spots. Do you know how many, and just speak to Ontario, do you know how many extra spots there are for pediatrics in that extra group through the University of Toronto?
So you're talking about the visa specifically?
Right on,
yeah. So I do know for general pediatrics, for general pediatrics, we have about 4. And it, again, does not take away from the other 20 to 25.
I get that. Now, of those 4, have you ever had a female from Saudi Arabia?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
And how did you deal with the language barrier? Did that work itself out?
So all of our trainees, not just the visa trainees, all of our trainees who are not Canadian medical graduates take part in a I'll call it a probationary type of process we have for the first several months. And they are not only judged on their medical competency, but also their language competency as part of that.
I'd like to share my time, Madam Chair, with Dan Mazur. Thank you.
Mr. Mazur, you have 3 minutes and 12 seconds.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the following motion. Given that the Chair abruptly suspended the meeting before completing 1 hour of testimony as agreed by the committee summons Dr. Patricia Houston, Vice Dean of Medical Education at University of Toronto, to appear within 1 week of this motion for 1 hour of testimony as part of the study on the impact of immigration policy in healthcare.
Now, there's a motion on the floor. Ms. Sidhu.
Madam Chair, I just want to let everyone know there's a technical difficulty, like 2 or 3 times happened. It's not anybody's fault. It was technical difficulty. And then second panel was waiting for that. Everyone has a question for the second panel. It's not anybody's fault. It's technical difficulty.
Thank you. I've got Ms. Conant.
Yes, I support this motion, and I would like it to go to a vote. I know for myself, I especially did not get to ask her any questions, the representative from the University of Toronto, and I felt that all of us here were really being educated about the programs that U of T offers, in particular for Saudi Arabian students. And I think we were getting to the core of what might be an issue in our medical system here, where we're excluding Canadians and bringing on people from other countries who are not staying here to work. And I don't know about everyone else around this table, but the people in my riding, in my area, are desperate for these doctors. We can't have people come and train here and then leave the country. If there's room for somebody to be here and train, then there must be room for a Canadian or somebody from another country to train here and then stay here. So they're taking up a space. I'd like to hear more about it, and so I support this motion.
Mr. Strauss?
Thank you,
to the motion, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's a really important issue. The motion that we previously agreed to was that we would do 1 hour of questions with her. We debated that motion at length. So from my point of view, there already procedurally is a motion to that effect. We would have 50 minutes with her. I think the next time she appears, it could be by Zoom. There's no reason that it needs to put her out and fly her back up to Ottawa. But ultimately, this committee's already agreed. We had 1 hour question with her. We didn't get it because of technical difficulties. But we did have resources to continue. So
We were 11 minutes short in that hour. So perhaps you would like her to come for 11 minutes?
I think if she is going to the hassle of reappearing, then 11 minutes seems not.
You just suggested a Zoom meeting?
Sure, I think that would be reasonable, depending on her schedule. But she was giving very interesting answers. I think it's a fundamental issue with our medical education system if we're training up to 20% of doctors at these institutions to not serve Canadians using Canadian public resources. So yeah, I support the motion. Thanks.
Public resources, but not funding. I mean,
can we suspend for a moment, please?
Would you like to suspend, Ms. Chi? We suspend. Let it be known that as a courtesy, I'm allowing the Conservative member to have 5 minutes with the witnesses. Mr. Strauss.
Thank you, Chair. So my questions today are for Dr. McPherson. Dr. McPherson, thank you so much for coming today. It means a lot on behalf of the people of Kitchener. Thank you for coming to serve our community. And beyond that, thank you for coming to committee today, because you're not just serving Kitchener now, you're serving the whole country of Canada. So we're really pleased and proud to have you here. I'd like to ask some questions at a high degree of granularity, because I think individual cases help us to understand what is actually going on with immigration for healthcare professionals. If I ask you any questions that are prying or you don't feel comfortable answering, just please let me know. Don't feel compelled to answer anything. We spoke a little bit before the meeting. By your lights, now you've practiced in both countries. You've practiced all around the United States, as you told me. Is there any reason ER doctors in general in the United States wouldn't be able to practice in Canada tomorrow?
Not that I'm aware of. I haven't found any really significant differences in the practice patterns that would prevent an American physician from practicing in Canada.
Fantastic. And overall, when you decided to come to Ontario, what barriers in terms of getting your license recognized did you meet?
I actually found the CPSO process for licensing to be fairly straightforward, just quite long. But I would say that compared to kind of the confusing process of British Columbia, Ontario's CPSO compares favorably.
I'm pleased to hear that. When you say long, how long do you mean?
It took me a few months to get the documents together. A lot of that includes getting official copies of transcripts from medical schools, which have to be mailed directly to the CPSO, and those are sort of the rate limiting steps. If you are really dedicated, you can get it done within 2 or 3 months.
I see. So, I mean, I would say, I won't ask your opinion on this, but I would say I think that if you hold a license in Oregon, it's probably the case that you passed all your med school courses. And it's a little bit strange to me that they would insist on verifying those documents in particular. You spoke a little bit about the provincial nominee program and how that was giving you a hard time because of some terminology that I think pretty obviously needs to be changed. But may I ask, which immigration program are you currently here on and working under?
So I'm currently here on a temporary work permit, which will expire after 3 years.
I see. And then beyond the provincial nominee program that you're speaking about, are there any other federal immigration programs that you have evaluated or considered or engaged that could take you on the path to permanent residency?
I'm not aware of any other pathway that would be viable for me. I am trying to improve my French to get some additional points for my application.
Tell me a little bit more about that. How would improving your French improve your ability to buy a home in Kitchener, Ontario?
So if I can demonstrate a certain level of French, then I can potentially apply for express entry as a French-speaking skilled worker, which is an alternative pathway.
Oh my God. I see. And so if you were to be evaluated and meet criteria to be a French-speaking skilled worker, you would have an easier time achieving permanent residency to work in Kitchener, Ontario as a emergency room physician?
Yeah, I mean, essentially it's a completely different pathway, which I don't think has any specific bearing on being a physician. It's really just any skilled professional who is fluent in French can qualify for an alternative pathway to express entry.
All right.
Minute?
I'm honestly a bit flabbergasted by this. Could you tell me which languages other than English you encounter in the emergency room in Kitchener, Ontario, say by frequency?
Spanish.
I think
Arabic.
quite a few of my patients are Indian, and so speaking various language from
Hindi.
India. I've had quite a few patients who speak Mandarin, Arabic. I don't think I've had any patients who speak French and do not speak English.
I see. It seems to me, I won't ask you to speak to this as you're going through the immigration process, but it seems to me that this could be rationalized in part. And then, so could you speak a little bit about if you continue to have difficulty achieving permanent residence status, either through the PNP program or any other program, what hardships does this cause you? Does it put you at risk of going back?
I mean, the short-term issue is that there's a 25% foreign investor tax on purchasing a home. So I'm living in a rental house with my husband and children, which is not a position I've been in quite some time. It's not ideal. We would love
Thank
to
you.
be
We've
able...
gone 21 seconds over time, Mr. Strauss.
Thank you very much.
I wish being here, and I wish to thank them for giving their time and their expertise to the answers. I also want to thank the committee for being generous enough to give the Conservatives an extra 5 minutes time for questioning because no one else got that. So thank you for that courtesy. And I now adjourn the meeting.
Chair?
Yes, Mr. Liu?
I just moved to adjourn the meeting.
Yes, meeting's adjourned.
Chair, I object.
Object. I was sick. More came out as we're watching the other shit.
I would like to welcome our witnesses. We have Vicki Eatridges, the chairperson and CEO at the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission. She is joined by Scott Hutton, the Vice President, Consumer Analytics and Strategy, Scott Shortlift, Vice President, Broadcasting, and Rachel Frenette, the General Counsel and Executive Director, Legal Services. So with that, Ms. Eatridges, you have 5 minutes for opening remarks. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having us. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. I'm joined today by colleagues who have already been introduced. We have Scott and Scott to make things easier, and our senior legal counsel, Rachel Frenette.
On the reses.
We are very pleased to be here as the committee studies Bill C-15. And before we get into committee members' questions, perhaps we could start with a brief overview of the CRTC and the work that we are doing for Canadians. Comme vous le savez, le CRTC est un tribunal.
As you know, the CRTC is an independent quasi-judicial tribunal that regulates the Canadian communications sector in the public interest. We hold public consultations on telecommunications and broadcasting matters, and we make decisions based on the public record. The Commission consists of 9 members, and we are supported by a team of expert staff that help us to make informed decisions.
15, which makes an amendment to the Broadcasting Act. But let me begin by briefly touching on our other major line of work, which is telecommunications. In meetings with Canadians across the country, we hear about how critical high-quality internet and cell phone services are for employment, for healthcare, education, connecting with loved ones, and so much more. We also hear about what happens when there is a lack of meaningful connectivity, and those stories are troubling. In 2019, the CRTC launched a broadband fund as part of a government-wide effort to help connect rural, remote, and Indigenous communities across Canada. Since then, we have allocated funding to projects delivering internet and cell phone services to over 54,000 homes in over 320 communities. These projects are connecting critical institutions like schools, healthcare facilities, and community centers that people rely on every single day. The CRTC's work to improve connectivity goes hand in hand with our efforts to strengthen competition and to make telecom services more affordable. One way we are helping to provide Canadians with more choice is by allowing competitors to sell plans using the networks of the large telecommunications companies. For internet services, more than a dozen companies are using the access granted by our framework to provide competitive plans to Canadians. And for cell phone services, competitors have expanded into 88 communities across 7 provinces. So what does that mean? It means that there's more choice for Canadians when they are looking for internet and cell phone plans. And we are also seeing some positive movement on prices. For example, according to StatsCan, prices for cell phone services decreased by over 37% over the past 4 years. At the same time, we know that networks are expensive to build and to maintain, so we've put measures in place to make sure that companies keep investing. So making sure that Canadians have access to high-quality networks and to choice is one part of the equation. The other part is making sure that we can easily find those choices and switch to plans that meet their needs. Last year, we launched a Consumer Protection Action Plan to help protect and empower Canadians. And to bring that plan to life, we initiated public proceedings dealing with everything from preventing bill shock, to limiting fees, to making it easier to compare offers and to switch plans. We will issue those decisions in the weeks and months to come, so stay tuned. Voilà donc un aperçu de notre travail du quotidien.
So that is some of the work that we do in telecommunications. Now I will share a bit about what we're doing in broadcasting. As you know, through the Online Streaming Act, Parliament entrusted us with the mandate to modernize Canada's broadcasting framework and ensure that online streaming services make meaningful contributions to Canadian and Indigenous content. Overhauling the decades-old regulatory framework is no small task. The changes that are required are substantial and complex. One of our first key decisions under the new legislation required online streaming service to direct funding to areas of immediate need, such as local news on radio and television, French language, and Indigenous content. This will result in it will support the Canadian broadcasting
Havana
system,
syndromed or what?
and we will be issuing other major decisions in the coming months.
Yet, but we're helping make real meaningful progress. More Canadians now have access to high-speed internet. There are more choices when it comes to cell phone services. Stronger consumer protections are coming, and the broadcasting system is evolving to better reflect Canada of today and tomorrow. Merci encore.
Thank you, Mr. Trudees. We will begin now with 6 minutes from Ms. Thomas, please.
Thank you. Mr. Trudees, I'm just curious with regards to Bill C-11. It's been on your plate for just about 2 years now. I'm curious as to how much has been spent on preparing for the implementation of Bill C-11.
So let me share very briefly what we've been doing on Bill C-11.
It's okay. I'm not asking for an outline of things that have been done. I'm just asking for the monetary amount that has been spent.
Okay, I'm not sure that we have those numbers at our fingertips, but I'm just turning to our head of broadcasting. We would be able to get that figure to you.
Okay, and that figure can be sent over to the committee then?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you very much. With regards to Bill C-11 and Bill C-18, I'm curious as to, since their passing, what type of analysis has been done in terms of their impact on subscription prices, reduced service options, content being blocked or downgraded. What type of analysis has the CRTC done in terms of the impact of Bill C-11 and C-18 on these things?
So Bill C-11 gave us a mandate to modernize the Act, and so we've been taking a number of steps to do that. We have put in place base contributions, bringing in the online streamers, which was what we were asked to do by Parliament. We have also put in place a new definition for Canadian content, and we're taking measures to support.
I'm just going to take you back to my question. In your opening statement, you used the word choice multiple times, being on the side of the consumer multiple times. If that truly is the desire of the CRTC, then I would imagine that some analysis has been done with regards to Bill C-18 and C-11 and making things more affordable. Has that taken place?
So again, in terms of the mandate under the Online Streaming Act and putting that in place, what we've been asked to do is bring in the online streamers as broadcasters, which is what we've been working on, and that's why we have our initial base contributions decision. And the work
broadcasters?
Why? In terms of putting these measures in place.
So do you expect
that
consumer prices would go up or down based on
Doesn't matter who you put on from where.
Again, I would come back to our mandate, and our mandate is to ensure that the online streamers are brought into the system, and the other objectives of the Act, which are to support Canadian and Indigenous content, and that's what we've been focused on.
Okay, so absolutely no care of the consumer whatsoever in the considerations and deliberations that take place at the CRTC.
Indigenous
So
content,
again, what we've been doing is holding public proceedings, which includes hearing from various consumer groups, and I can tell you that in the context of the Canadian content hearing, we heard from 500 interveners. We heard live from almost 80. So we've heard a wide range of perspectives on this, and what we're putting in place is what Parliament has asked us to do.
What's the number one benefit that you're hearing from consumers?
To ensure that we are supporting areas that are important, like local news. Like French content, Indigenous content. So that's what we're hearing in terms of what Canadians are asking for.
And what would the number one drawback be? What are they concerned about with the implementation of Bill C-11? You said you've heard from over 500 consumer groups. What's their top concern?
Well, again, it comes back to the issues that we've been talking about. People are very focused on wanting to make sure that we have support for things like news. We've heard a lot about the importance. People are concerned, as I think we all hear about from Canadians, about loss of news and that kind of content.
So
No,
I hear
people aren't
from
complaining
hockey
about
people in
loss
my
of
office
news.
as well.
Yeah, they're complaining about not
I wouldn't
loss.
know the
They're
exact
complaining
number,
about
but it
the
would be well
lack
over
of
100.
integrity of news, which is why there's loss of
And
news.
the top two
Nobody
concerns
trusts
that I
the
hear,
fucking news providers.
yeah, it would be in the thousands actually, if I do that math
Fucking
correctly.
kidding me. The fucking grenade
and
was
the
behind
top
me.
concerns that I hear about are the protection of
Oh, I
freedom,
ran into a
choice,
fucking
speech,
mine.
access to information. And the second thing that I hear a lot about is just consumer pricing. They're concerned that with increased regulation, consumer pricing will go up. I'm surprised that neither of these were mentioned by you, and so I'm curious as to why we're hearing conflicting things.
So I would say that freedom of expression and the free flow of information is a fundamental principle on both the telecommunications work that we do and on the broadcasting side as well. In terms of pricing on the broadcasting side, that's for private companies. We don't regulate the price of broadcasting.
No, but your regulation does cause prices to go up.
We are focused on putting in place the measures that Parliament has asked us to,
But just a moment ago, you also said that you're focused on making things more affordable for Canadians and being on the side of the consumer.
That's correct, and there are a lot of examples of the work that we've been doing to ensure more affordability, which is having
And
more
so I'm just
choice.
curious how Bill C-11 falls into that example of creating greater affordability.
Well, when I was talking about creating better affordability, that was in the context of our telecommunications work in terms of internet pricing and cell phone pricing.
Okay, so it's probably more reasonable to expect that Bill C-11 will actually cause the prices to go up.
I can't speak to what private companies do. We don't regulate.
But there
the
will
price
be a
on the
greater
broadcasting
regulatory
side.
burden that they will have to carry, correct?
They do have to comply with regulations.
Okay. And will they be expected to change their algorithm?
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. That concludes the time for this round. We will continue
come
with
back to
Mr. Sawatsky for 6 minutes, please.
Hello, thank you for coming today. I just wanted to bring our topic over to the scam calls, unsolicited calls. I'm sure we all get them. I certainly get quite a few, not only calls but also texts. At a previous meeting, we had RCMP Chief Superintendent Michael Segbini here, and I had asked about this question as well, and he said that the RCMP has worked with telcos to try to minimize this. So just, I guess, for context here, I mean, these calls are not only a problem, but they pose consumer protection risks for seniors, vulnerable populations who might be targeted through phishing and fraud schemes. If you could speak on what enforcement actions the CRTC is currently undertaking to investigate and prevent such calls or texts, including spoofs and abandoned robocalls, and maybe just a note to how effective those measures have been in reducing scam calls for Canadians.
So perhaps I can start off, and I might turn things over to my colleague Scott to provide more detail. Certainly, we hear a lot about scam calls, and they are absolutely a nuisance at best, and sometimes fraudulent at worst. There is a government-wide effort to tackle these issues. So we do work with the Privacy Commissioner and the Competition Bureau to promote compliance with CASL, so Canada's anti-spam law. So we do that. So we do work within a civil regime. We have a small but mighty team that works on that. So the main thing that we do on that front is to promote compliance. But again, working with law enforcement who has a criminal aspect as well. I don't know if you want to add some details.
Yeah, but we've also found very much that it helps in the work, as Vicky mentioned, as our chair mentioned. Very much we're in a civil regime, and we end up collaborating with civil partners that we mentioned, but also with those who do look at cybercrime and who are, with respect to actual fraud on that front. And really much in light of our role, certainly we're able to share and participate and gain knowledge and share our knowledge with those parties. But very much it's working collaboratively to provide prevention, to advising Canadians what are the most recent scams, things that we're hearing through the Spam Reporting Centre, things that we hear from actual complaints filed with us and those that we are investigating. We can't quite share the investigations in light of, the very nature of them being investigations with you, but certainly we are continuing on that front. But what is very, very helpful is helping and arming Canadians with the information needed for them to make sure they can protect themselves.
Thank you very much. Switching the topic over to local media, of course, there's been a profound transformation over the past decade. Traditional revenue models that once funded Canadian programming, like cable and television subscriptions, are declining, and then, of course, other streaming platforms have grown. So the CRTC's new digital broadcasting regulatory framework, it requires online streaming services to financially contribute to the creation, production, and promotion of Canadian content. So can the CRTC, if you could provide an estimate of the projected annual financial contributions that online streaming platforms will now be required to make under the new regulatory framework, and how much reinvestment this is expected to generate for Canada's cultural production ecosystem?
So as part of the Online Streaming Act that was given to us by Parliament, we were directed to bring online streamers into the regime. We fairly quickly held a proceeding and a public hearing on base contributions. So to start to get that money flowing fairly quickly, we certainly heard about a need, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of local news and the importance of news and some of the challenges that are being faced. So we did issue a decision on base contributions that is expected to bring in an estimated $200 million per year. So that is the base contributions, and the work continues in terms of the actual expenditures for each of the companies. So we're continuing to work on that.
Thank you. Chair, sorry, how long do I have left?
1.5 minutes.
1.5 minutes. Okay, so I was reading about the next generation 911, which would represent a critical modernization of Canada's emergency communications infrastructure. Unlike legacy 911 systems, NG911 enables Canadians to access emergency services through voice, text, real-time video, and data transmission, which improves response capabilities, especially for persons with disabilities in crisis situations. Implementing NG911 requires substantial investment into telecom network upgrades, cybersecurity protections, data management systems, and public safety answering point modernization. Given the scale of these infrastructure and operational costs, it would be great if you could explain how CRTC is overseeing the national rollout of Next Gen 911. What's the total estimated cost of the implementation, and what safeguards are in place to ensure that the public safety upgrades don't disproportionately increase costs for consumers?
So perhaps I can start, and I don't know if we'll have time to go for any detail, perhaps not. But what I would say there is, I mean, obviously, I think we all know how important and critical 911 is to Canadian safety. This is an issue that we've been looking at for some time and have been consulting on very broadly. We have been hearing from...
Apologies, I'm going to have to end it there. Thank you, Mr. Sawatsky. On va continuer avec
We'll
Monsieur
continue now with Mr. Garon for 6 minutes, please. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to come back closer to the bill that we are looking into, C-15. I know that you can't always tell. That's what we're talking about. And if I am understanding, this bill wants to correct a cancellation or a deletion that was made, rather. I know that it is technical, but could you please explain, in concrete terms, what was the mistake exactly that was committed when it comes to protections for privacy, perhaps with concrete examples? And was the privacy of Canadian citizens jeopardized with that error? Because that is what we are dealing with today. Perhaps to begin, I could say that privacy is our utmost priority. So with every decision that we do take, we take into consideration Canadians' privacy. That is always the case. And I know that there was a mistake that was committed, but I can assure you that we have always taken privacy into consideration. Perhaps just to provide explanation, I can ask Rachel, our lawyer, to answer. So, Madam Chair, to explain a bit of context around the provision that this committee is currently studying, based on our understanding, this is a legislative provision that is interpretative by nature. In the work that we carry out, the Commission must examine privacy issues in the subjects that it looks into. There were some changes and adoptions made in Parliament of legislative measures, and inadvertently, this interpretative text was deleted. What I can tell you about our work is that the Commission has always taken into consideration privacy issues. For example, when we start public hearings, we are also subject to the Privacy Act like all other federal institutions, which means that we must respect all of the provisions under that act. There are also other statutory measures, including under the Broadcasting Act, that have an impact on Canadians' privacy. So we have undertaken our work in full consciousness of the privacy issues in the regulatory work that we do. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that's clear enough. So what I'm understanding is this. There was a change, a legislative change that was made that is here to put a Band-Aid over the boo-boo, and it was a... And now I would like to come back to the minister's testimony from earlier. We were talking about the role of the state in TV broadcasting, and he answered me that it was the state's role to fund CBC because only... I'm not an expert in broadcasting, and I was under the impression that the CRTC regulates traditional television for all channels. The minister might have made a mistake when he spoke. Thank you for the question. I wasn't here for the minister's testimony, so I can't comment on his remarks, but we are responsible for the whole system. So that includes traditional radio and TV. It also includes online services now. And in the Broadcasting Act, it is clear that this is all one system, and we are responsible for regulating all of it. Thank you very much. I just have a minute and a half left, so I'll ask you shorter questions. Often when we look at the CRTC's work, when people from the industry look at what you do, for example, they get the impression that it takes you a very long time to render your decisions. Could something be done to speed up CRTC decision-making on the regulatory process? So just to start answering, unfortunately, that is not the first time we have been asked that question. So I think as a quasi-judiciary tribunal, naturally, we do have to adhere to processes. We have, for example, public hearings, and we need to hear from all stakeholders who are interested parties. So in and of itself, that takes time. I can speak to some things that could be done, but I know we don't have much time. Yes, I might leave you the remaining time, but is are funding resources an issue? Do you have enough funding? What are the main reasons why it takes so long to reach a decision? Well, we know that industry players often have to wait for long times. We know that this is the nature of our work. It's because we have such formal processes. That sort of thing takes time, like the public hearings. As I mentioned, we had 500 interveners for one case alone on the definition of Canadian content. It's very time-consuming. We've also held a public hearing that lasted for 3
Maybe. Is she single now too? Did she break up with Lucas here? I'm so betrayed. So betrayed. Girlfriend watches the new 90 Day Fiance without me.
And there are many different points of view to be taken into consideration.
There's
Thank you,
nothing
Mr.
sacred
Gnacco.
anymore in this world.
Please.
Thank you very much, witnesses, for being here, officials. So I'd like to go back to the Online Streaming Act, and specifically the new definition of Canadian content that the CRTC has set out. What is the mechanism by which streaming companies that fall under the Act, whether it's YouTube or Netflix or a podcast platform, is expected to conform to its obligations?
So what we are working toward through these various proceedings, and there's some more to come. We have other public proceedings that are ongoing. Through those decisions, we will be moving to conditions of service, and those will apply to specific companies.
But in effect, they would have to make sure that their algorithms conform to serve up the required amount of content that you've said is fitting that new definition, correct?
So the Act actually prohibits us from regulating algorithms, so we don't do that.
How are they supposed to ensure that they're offering up the right balance of CRTC-approved content without an algorithm change?
Perhaps I'll turn this over to our head of broadcasting to provide more detail.
Yeah, we have certain decisions that are still before us, but what I can say is we ask questions about discoverability. Discoverability is more than algorithms. We had several of the streamers intervene in those proceedings and bring to our attention the amounts they already spend on promoting Canadian content, what they do in terms of billboards, promotions, what they do in terms of bringing Canadian artists forward. By their own testimony, they've said there are many ways they can make content discoverable. We are now examining whether we will build rules around those. Those decisions are still forthcoming. But I will say the concept of discoverability is not the same as algorithms because, as the chair said, the Act clearly says we will not make orders regulating the use of specific computer algorithms or source code.
So you mentioned advertising. So you're saying that YouTube could satisfy its obligations by running a billboard campaign promoting heated rivalry, but not changing anything about the YouTube homepage or the user suggestions? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that we ask questions about what are the best ways to promote Canadian content and make them discoverable because it was an objective in the Act.
But you've had several years. You've had several years of this already. So I feel like you're saying that you don't prescribe an algorithm, knowing full well that in order to conform to the regulations, these streaming companies will have to modify their algorithms. Can you give me an example of how they would meet your definition or your expectation without having to amend their algorithms?
If I could just take this in two parts. First of all, our definition is definitions of Canadian content that is applied throughout the system. It's not necessarily about promoting specific shows. In terms of how they could meet that, that is a subject of a public consultation and a forthcoming decision. And because we're a quasi-judicial tribunal, I can't give you examples at this time.
Okay. So we're just supposed to just trust that it'll all work out? Is that the expectation on Canadians?
I think that the CRTC always expects that Canadians will hold us to account when our decisions come out, and we will be pleased to answer questions when our decisions come out.
Consumers desire a variety of things. There are Canadians, people that live in Canada that represent diverse backgrounds that may prefer to watch content from their home country or in a different language. In the past, CRTC has actively fought certain aspects of consumer preference. A notable example of this is, the SIM subbing debate from some years ago, where Canadians wanted to be able to access, American Super Bowl ads, and the CRTC erred against consumer choice. So what safeguards are in place to ensure that this isn't going to happen with online streaming regulations?
Well, what I could say is we will act within the ambit of the law that Parliament has given us. SimSub is a very complicated discussion, but I will say that the CRTC actually brought in a rule saying that Canadians could watch the Super Bowl on whatever platform they wished. However, we were taken to court. The Supreme Court of Canada found that we had exceeded our powers in that respect.
So what's the recourse available if a platform is not complying with the framework that's set out? I won't name any, but let's say that there's a company that doesn't believe this has all that much authority, but they meet what you believe is the threshold for it. What can CRTC do to force compliance or disconnect service in Canada?
I think, sorry, I'm just trying to parse your question and make sure that I answer it correctly. Forgive me if I'm
If someone doesn't comply, what do you have available?
If someone doesn't comply, we have an escalating series of measures we can take that start with a warning letter that can go to a mandatory hearing. At the most extreme level, Parliament has now given us the possibility of administrative monetary penalties, which is a tool we have not used to date. So we have a variety of tools. I think the
could you shut off access to a website in Canada?
We have no power to shut off access to the internet, no.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. That concludes your time. We'll continue with Mr. Fragiskatos for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to all of you for being here. Mr. Tridis, question on artificial intelligence, in fact. I know you gave a recent interview in early January on how the CRTC was approaching or beginning to approach that question. I ask the question as a parliamentarian, and I think all of us around the table and beyond are concerned about the rise of AI. We see tremendous potential with it, of course, for democracy perhaps, but also for all sorts of benefits beyond democracy, in healthcare in particular, I think. But let's think about generative AI, for example, and what that might mean ultimately for deepfakes, the use of those in election campaigns or between election campaigns, these kinds of things. I know that the European Union is advanced, certainly, when it comes to looking at questions like that. Is the CRTC prepared to delve in further and address the matter?
So I can tell you what we hear about and have been hearing about in our proceedings with respect to AI. Obviously, there's a lot of concern. There's a broad range of views, which is not surprising in the broadcasting sector. We hear a fear that television and movies will no longer be created by humans. There's obviously fear about job loss, which you hear across the board. We've also heard some positive remarks about accessibility and how closed captioning and other accessible tools have been made better because of AI. So we've heard a wide range. We have been asking questions about AI in our most recent decision on the definition of Canadian content. We did include in our decision a reference to, creators should be human and not artificial intelligence. So we have been starting to address those kinds of issues on the broadcasting side.
And that's encouraging, but obviously these risks remain. And again, I look to Europe, where, for example, they've moved ahead and required that the individual or the organization that originates the AI content, the video, in this case, the example that I'm giving, that be made clear. So when it comes to deepfakes, for example, I've mentioned that already, that's where I think the real risk is. If there's risks, all of us do worry about that, and constituents do too. Do you believe that the content creators of AI should be, we should know who's putting out such videos? Should that be required, as Europe has moved in the direction?
If I may, because we also have questions about AI usage in others of our consultations, which are still open. What I could say is that we're in close touch with our colleagues in Europe. We trade information with them. We're aware we're under different legal statutes. We're building a record around broadcasting in Canada. We're also not responsible for the open internet, and we realize that deepfakes are often shared on social media platforms, which we don't regulate. On broadcasting platforms, we have asked questions around the usage of AI, and we have raised the question about labeling. It is a matter that is still before us, but we're certainly paying close attention to what's happening in Europe while balancing that with our primordial mission to ensure that there's freedom of expression. So we're always balancing those issues.
I know, and all of us know, that it's a new and emerging area, and so of course I would encourage you to continue to make efforts on that, and it's very good that you're engaged with the Europeans on it. I have about a minute left. Could you touch again on the advances that have been made when it comes to affordability? I'm thinking specifically here about cell phones. This has been an ongoing issue for a number of years. Can you go over the numbers again, Mr. Tridis, on the achievements that we've seen so far?
Well, like committee members, I'm sure we often hear when we are speaking with Canadians across Canada about the challenges in terms of affordability. The measures that we've put in place on, you asked about cell phone services on the cell phone side, where we have allowed competitors to offer more choice to compete using the networks of large telecommunications companies. We've seen a lot of choice come out of that. The StatsCan data that we've seen that I referred to earlier is that from 2021 to 2025, cell phone prices have gone down more than 37%, which is quite significant considering we've seen a lot of other prices relatively stable in the market or going up. So we have seen some positive signs on that front.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fradjus-Gados. On va continuer avec Monsieur Champoux.
We'll continue with Mr. Shampoo for 2 minutes. Thank you,
Mr.
Ms.
Shampoo.
Chair. And thank you for
Hello, I
welcoming
really
me
like shampoo.
to your
I think
committee.
everyone should
A first time for me, but it's not the first time that I've spoken with
Shampoo.
our representatives from the CRTC, and it's a pleasure to see you again. Mr. Garon is sharing his time with me, and I would like to ask you about independent local news. The CRTC has handed down a decision that made me afraid to join the broadcasters eligible for this group. The CRTC justified Chorus being part of this group, saying that new funding was going to arrive to enrich the program, and the CRTC said that Chorus was a major player, and the funding still has not been seen. So can we have an update? What can we tell to the broadcasters who are having such a hard time keeping their newsrooms open? I can start very briefly to give some context. So, regarding news, we have heard Canadians, and we could not agree more. The news is very important. We have taken
The news is not
multiple
important,
measures
clearly, because
to
it's easily
support
corrupted
news,
by a bunch of retards. Come on,
including
dumbasses.
our decision on the base contributions. News is very important and deserves our funding. We
news
took
is important, but
one decision for radio, one
who's
decision
providing
for
news?
television
That's more important.
broadcasting, and on that I will ask Scott. I have very little time. Scott, I know you can give us really detailed answers, but what I really want to know is the funding on its way? Can the CRTC reassure broadcasters that they will receive that support?
We don't need current broadcasters.
That's
to be
really the
funded.
question
They're
on
corrupting
all of their
garbage.
lips. There was a decision at the Federal Court of Appeal. When there will be a decision, rather, from the Federal Court of Appeals, the funding will be ready to go. I check 3 times per day on the court's website. That is where the blockage is happening now. At the same time, we are in contact with the Canadian Broadcasters Association to continue having information regarding pressures on broadcasters. I'm sorry, Mr. Shortlive. Thank you, Mr. Shampoo.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Commissioner and officials. In September, you appeared at the Industry Committee to answer questions, including questions from my colleague, Raquel Dancho, the member for Kildonan St. Paul. She asked you a series of questions about what the CRTC is doing to crack down on fraud and scam phone calls. You then talked about resources and talked about limitations, but you said that you have a role to play, and I wonder if you can update Canadians on what your office is doing to cut down on the problem ongoing of fraud conducted over the telephone.
So
Can't wait
thank
for
you
him
for the
to blow
question. I
that
mean,
up.
this, as we talked about earlier, this is obviously at best an annoyance and at worst fraudulent and criminal. We do have a civil regime that we, together with the Bureau and the Office of the Privacy Commissioner, we promote compliance with, and there's a lot of education on that front. Anything that falls more within the sort of pure fraud type of activity, that would fall more with law enforcement.
As the regulator, you have a role, though, regulating the companies that carry the phone lines over which this fraud is done, and the amount is not trivial. The estimates are up to $12 billion. All MPs are contacted in their communities by victims of fraud. They tend to be among the more vulnerable in our society, up to the estimate being as high as $12 billion. I think Canadians are looking for urgency on this. Not just
dancing around going,
explanations
oh, it's not our fault.
all the different jurisdictions. So what is your...
The cops that do that,
you
not us.
demonstrate
We have
the
abilities
urgency?
to trace everybody who
Tell
uses
us
our
what,
services.
since that meeting in September, what further steps your commission has taken on this?
So we are always promoting compliance and education about scam calls. I would say, and you did mention this, but it is a very small part of our role. The only amounts that we get in terms of parliamentary appropriations from government are it's less than 5% of.
Okay, so are you under-resourced to fulfill this aspect of your mandate?
We work with others to fulfill this part of our mandate, and so we work with partners on this front. So again, what our focus has been is really to help promote compliance, and again, working with our partners on this front to do that.
Okay, are legislative changes needed to give you tools that you need to properly regulate the businesses that through which these frauds are conducted?
So again, we're part of the civil regime that we help promote compliance with CASL, with Canada's anti-spam law. The type of fraud, if you're talking about pure fraud, which more falls on the criminal side, that would be all law enforcement. So even additional resources would not put us in the realm of
okay, but the companies you regulate are on the front line of this, and this is where referral to law enforcement would come into play, correct? You would refer to law enforcement.
And we do.
Okay, but the vast majority of cases are not even reported. Most victims just don't even report, and prosecutions are I think rare. Do you know if there's a success rate on prosecutions for the referrals that you make?
Again, I think that this would be a better question for law enforcement because our regime is civil. We do
but
not.
I'm asking how much about the referrals that you make. You said that you're in partnership with law enforcement. So how many referrals have you made for prosecution in the last year you might be able to track?
So it's complaint based. We should be able to get the information in terms of how many complaints we would pass along to law enforcement.
Okay, please table that. And do you know if there is a success? Are you able to give sufficient evidence for law enforcement and then prosecutions to make the case?
Yeah, the regime we have, and through the Spam Reporting Center, through our arrangements we have to share complaints received, we are not involved in the prosecution, so we would not have data in that regard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. We'll continue with Mr. McDonald for 5 minutes now.
Thank you, witnesses. We've been talking about fraud, so I'm going to just branch out a little from that. On the CRTC's role in controlling sextortion of our youth in Canada, do you have a role to play, and can you speak to that?
My short answer would be no. I don't know if our legal counsel has anything to add on that.
Madam President, I mean, you know, we are a statutory creature. We are bound by the statute, and we implement the statutes that Parliament, in its wisdom, has chosen to provide us the mandate.
You're a statutory
and
creature.
certainly, while that is an extraordinarily pressing issue for all Canadians, it is not within the realm of the CRTC to regulate in that space.
So you would have to you'd have to take direction from statutes to put regulations in place that would make online platforms accountable, because what happens is the bad actors that are from outside of our country, we can't punish them by regular law. We would have to have regulations that would make the platform providers accountable.
It would appear, I mean, when we're talking about, you know, issues like sextortion, I mean, those are criminal matters, which would probably be more appropriately dealt with by law enforcement agencies. As the communications regulator, you know, one would think that we have to be bound by the statute for which we have been entrusted by Parliament, and that is, you know, regulating the communication space, ensuring a sustainable Canadian broadcasting system, ensuring, you know, a robust telecommunications system across Canada.
Is it reasonable to think that you could, if you were given the direction, regulate online platform providers so that they would have to deal with the issue of sextortion online?
I'd say we'd be very cautious about speculating about anything we haven't received. I'll also note with what Parliament's given us to date, we have a very limited
Sextortion?
role.
They talk about old men who go on OnlyFans.
We deal with online broadcasters when they act as broadcasters, but for example, they act very clear that we don't deal with social media, we don't deal with the open internet. So we have a very restricted role under our legislation currently.
Okay, I'll pivot to something a little more upbeat. In Budget 2025, Canada's included funding for the Canada Music Fund,
Yeah, baby.
Canada Periodic Fund, and Building Communities Through Arts and Heritage Program. And I think that's just sending out a signal to strengthen Canadian storytelling and creative industries. I'm from Atlantic Canada.
Greg
We
Coomer.
depend tremendously on regional broadcasters and small digital platforms to promote culture in our communities. Can you speak to how the CRTC will be encouraging the creation and distribution of culture through their programs?
What I would say is we've been given the mandate by Parliament to put in place and implement the Online Streaming Act, and that is all about ensuring that there is support for Canadian stories, for Canadian content, Indigenous content. And so that is all of the work that we are doing right now and have been working on, is to ensure that those Canadian stories and that Canadian content is available.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. We will now continue with 5 minutes from Mr. Lawton.
New intro screen.
Thank you very much. So I want to go back to the Online Streaming Act and what's captured by this, because when we are looking at a streaming platform's offerings that would be subject to this, podcast would be included in that, correct?
So the policy direction that was given to us by government specifically said that podcasts are not included, and as part of our decision on base contributions, we said that we would not
69 out of
regulate
69
podcasts.
achievements.
How do you define podcast? Because there are a lot of shows. Again, this would be less germane when you're talking about a Netflix, but when you're looking at YouTube, there are a lot of shows that still have production values, production companies.
Can uninstall
they
Half-Life
are
2
visual entities. How are they excluded, and how is that line drawn in a way that a scripted fictional show is captured, but a commentary show or chat show that isn't news programming wouldn't be?
I want to thank you for the question. Those are excellent questions. We haven't gotten to the part of a regulatory cadre where we've had to define exactly what a podcast is. As we move into that social media space, I think the questions you posed are exactly the questions we want to pose, and we want to hear from informed witnesses. So thank you. Those are great questions.
I was bound to have one or two, but I appreciate that. But again, so you're not actually able to definitively say that certain programs that people would largely see as podcasts won't be captured by this because the lines have not yet been drawn, you're saying?
I think what we can say is we've been clear that we won't regulate podcasts. Therefore, if someone brought us a case that said this is an edge case, our starting position would be if it's identified as a podcast, we would not want to regulate it. We would look at evidence put in front of us, but we've been very clear that we have no intention of regulating podcasts, both based on the policy direction and on our decisions.
Now, as I read the determinations of what Canadian content is, it's supposed to be, for the most part, value neutral. You're looking predominantly at ownership and production, not whether it sufficiently tells the story of Canada. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, it's based on a point system. It modified a point system which has been around for several decades. We did add some bonus points for identifiable Canadian content, and we went through what that means or whether it's based on Canadian book. But it is meant to be neutrally applied. We don't want to get into a case where I or any of my colleagues are saying this is Canadian enough. We want to be able to add up points based on who are the Canadians who are making the content.
So that brings us back to the objective. Is the point of this to ensure that we are creating Canadian jobs and supporting productions that create Canadian jobs, or is it about telling the story of Canada? Because in the messaging from the political side of this, from the government, it was always about ensuring Canadian stories are being told, but you've designed the regulations in a way that is strictly about ownership, and you could